Chapter 12:16. The Qin clan had resided in the Cloud Prefecture city for generations and was considered a prominent clan. Although it couldn't be considered a power of the upper echelons, at least as long as they didn't offend a celestial king-tier powerhouse, they wouldn't have to worry about survival. As for Immortal King-level characters, they naturally wouldn't dare to antagonize them. The major powers that settled down in the immortal realms were all very cautious, especially in a capital city like the Cloud Prefecture. Today was the wedding day of the Qin clan's daughter, Qin Yi, and it was especially lively. Many guests arrived one after another. These were all the relatives and friends of the Qin clan. They had been rooted in the Cloud State City for many years, and through marriage or apprenticeship, they had a wide network of friends and had long become part of the Cloud State City. Congratulations, little E. A magnificent scene could be seen in the sky. Great demons came whistling over. Winged pure white snow lion king, irascible giant eagles, and flying beasts pulled carriages in the sky. They all landed on the ground and congratulated the people who welcomed them. Elder brother, congratulations. A young man walked over with a smile. Hui Yen, don't stand on ceremony. Hurry up and go in with Shui. The young man who came to greet them smiled and shook his head. The people who came were his younger sister and brother-in-law. If his younger sister, Qin Yi, also had someone like Hui Yen, he would feel at ease. After all, the Hua clan was a prestigious clan that was on par with their Qin clan. To ordinary people, if a clan had many Immortal Foundation experts, or even peak-level Immortal Foundation characters, it would already be considered a prestigious clan. After all, Immortal Kings were already considered characters with nobility. They were so lofty that it wasn't easy to come into contact with them. As more and more guests entered, Hui Yen looked at his wife, Qin Shui, and asked, "Today is little Yi's wedding day. Why does elder brother seem so unhappy?" "Are you asking the obvious?" Qin Shui glared at Hui Yen as she spoke. Father and the elders of the clan didn't agree to this marriage, but they couldn't change little Yi's mind. This lass's talent is extremely good, and there's a high chance that she would be able to step into the Immortal Foundation realm in the future. Although the talent of the man she fancied isn't weak, he doesn't have any background. How can he roam the immortal realms freely? Otherwise, they wouldn't have held a wedding banquet in my Qin family. If this Lin Shui had the same level of power as the Hua clan, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Qin Shui shook her head. A hint of pride flashed in Hui Yan's eyes as he felt a sense of superiority. The figure of an extremely beautiful woman appeared in his mind. It was his wife, Qin Shui's younger sister, Qin Yi. His sister-in-law was younger and more beautiful than his wife. Unfortunately, the man she was going to marry was not good. The Qin manor was bustling with noise and excitement, but the guests were all snickering in their hearts. Their daughter was getting married, yet they were holding a banquet at home. This Qin family was quite interesting. Outside the Qin mansion, Qin Wenyan and the rest had already landed on the ground before arriving. After all, this was senior brother Lin Shui's wedding, and Qin Wenyan was still very careful. Naturally, he had to show respect to the Qin clan. If he directly rode on a demonic beast, it would be somewhat disrespectful. Because there were many people coming from the void, no one noticed Qin Wenyan and the others. It was not until they walked into the Qin clan that Qin Yi's brother, Qin Ao, saw them and asked with a smile, "You are?" "We are from Lin Shui's sect and specially came here to congratulate him. I'm his master." Sword Sovereign Ling Tian spoke. Chen Ao stared at Sword Sovereign Ling Tian in front of him. He actually didn't exude any immortal might at all. Lin Shui's master was only a character at the celestial phenomenon realm. Chen Ao couldn't help but feel greatly disappointed. "Uncle Fang, welcome." Chen Ao walked past Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, abandoning them as he went to welcome another group of people. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's countenance instantly turned incredibly unsightly, as though he was extremely unhappy. The person getting married today was his disciple, yet the people of the Qin clan actually had such an attitude? The old ancestor of the Battle Sword sect walked over and patted his shoulder. "Today, we are here to congratulate you. Let's enter." Everyone entered. Qin Wenyan, Mo Qingqing and the rest walked at the back of the crowd, inconspicuously inconspicuous. Qin Wenyin furrowed his brows as he shook his head lightly. As expected, this was a situation he didn't want to see. However, this was only normal. Naturally, as long as his senior brother Lin Shuai didn't mind, he wouldn't have any thoughts about it. He came here today only to offer his blessings. At the location of the banquet, the Chen clan set up a banquet hall that could accommodate thousands of people. The guests were all chatting and laughing. The atmosphere was extremely lively. During the banquet, there were many people serving delicacies and wine for everyone to enjoy. Qin Wenyin and the others gathered in a corner, quietly keeping a low profile. But very swiftly, they caused a huge commotion. This commotion naturally wasn't caused by Qin Wenyin or those from the Battle Sword sect. Rather, it was because of the beauty of the maidens. This was especially so for Mo Qingqing. She was like the most dazzling female lead in the crowd. It was very hard not to notice her. Not to mention Purgatory, Qin Yao, Luo Huan, Lu Bingyu and the others beside her. Although their beauty was inferior to Mo Qingqing, they were all extraordinary beauties as well. Who are these people? Hui Yan lifted his wine cup, his gaze directly landing on Mo Qingqing as he asked Chen Shui who was beside him. I'm not sure. Chen Shui furrowed her brows. At this moment, there was already someone walking towards Qin Wenyin and the others. That person smiled and asked, Uncle Chen, are you not going to introduce these guests to us? A middle-aged man who was chatting with some old men turned his gaze over. But at this moment, Lin Shuai's silhouette suddenly appeared. He walked to the front of the crowd and bowed, Old ancestor, master, please forgive this disciple for not being able to welcome you personally. Lin Shuai, today is your wedding day, there's no need to care about us. The old ancestor of the Battle Sword sect straightforwardly spoke. Lin Shuai's wife, Qin Yi, pays her respects to all the elders. The maiden beside Lin Shuai was clad in a luxurious red phoenix feather robe, exuding a sense of nobility and elegance. Right, Lin Shuai, treat Miss Little E well. The old ancestor of the Battle Sword sect happily nodded his head. Senior brother, congratulations. The disciples of the Battle Sword sect all smiled as they congratulated Lin Shuai. Qin Wenyin pulled Mo Qingqing over as he smiled. Senior brother Lin, this junior brother is here to drink a cup of wine. You wouldn't mind, right? Junior brother Qin, you've actually returned. Senior brother is naturally happy that you can come together with Qingqing. Lin Shuai's smile was sincere. Back then, it was him who guided Qin Wenyin into the Battle Sword sect. During the battle against Grand Shang, Qin Wenyin had displayed extraordinary talent. But at that time, Lin Shuai would never have imagined that Qin Wenyin would have such accomplishments today. Cultivation was like this. The further one progressed, the more obvious the disparity would be. In the past, the 8 era-suppressing geniuses were all compared together. But now, they were no longer on the same level. Chen Yi's beautiful eyes stared in astonishment at Qin Wenyin and Mo Qingqing. These two clearly stood out from the crowd. Although they didn't release their auras, just from their demeanor, one could tell that they were extraordinary. In addition, Purgatory, who stood behind Lin Shuai, exuded a unique sense of beauty. It has been so many years since we parted. Who would have thought that I would return just in time for senior brother's wedding? Even if there's a heavenly matter, I will still cast it aside. Qin Wenyin smiled. Senior brother, you have to remember that I will forever be your junior brother. Chenny didn't understand why Qin Wenyin would say such words. But how could Lin Shuai not understand? Right now, regardless of their strength or status, there was a huge disparity between them. It was naturally impossible for their relationship to be as natural as it was in the past. It was very hard for him to treat Qin Wenyin as an ordinary junior brother like Duan Han. Qin Wenyin was telling him that there was no need to be estranged from him, just like in the past. Lin Shuai, Little E, the two of you go and entertain the guests. We will take care of the food and drinks. The old ancestor of the Battle Sword sect smiled. Lin Shuai nodded his head lightly. The people of his sect would always be considerate of him. Little E. Chen Shui and Hui Yan walked over. Elder sister, brother-in-law, Qin Yi called out. Little E, you guys go and do your own things. I will entertain the guests on your behalf. Chen Shui smiled. Okay. Chen Yi nodded lightly. Together with Lin Shui, they went to greet the guests one by one. Chen Shui stared at her younger sister as she shook her head. Little Yi doesn't know any better. You guys are all elders. Why didn't you persuade Lin Shui? Since his sect is here, why would he still want to hold his wedding in my Chen clan? Do you guys feel that this is good for Lin Shui? This is Lin Shui's own decision. We will naturally respect it. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian wasn't in a very good mood today. It was only because this was the day of his disciple's wedding that he endured it. You guys are the ones who know your own limitations. But since this is the case, why didn't you persuade Lin Shui to leave Little Yi? Chen Shui lowered her voice as a look of unhappiness could be seen on her face. Lin Shui and Little Yi are in love with each other. Since you are Little Yi's elder sister, why do you have to say such words? Yi Lingshuang unhappily spoke. Chen Shui is right. Lin Shui is a man, how can he make Little Yi unable to lift her head high? This is simply irresponsible. If the beauties among you all wish to marry, I can introduce them to good men. You wouldn't have to worry about criticism. This is the difference between men and women. Hui Yan's voice was also very soft. He stared at Mo Qingqing, Purgatory, Rohuan and the others. These women were truly extraordinary. You yourself are merely a Wu Xiu at the celestial phenomenon realm, yet you keep saying that senior brother Lin Shui made Little Yi unable to lift her head high. Those who don't know would think that you are extremely powerful. Qin Wendian glanced at Hui Yan as he similarly lowered his voice. He didn't want to dampen the mood of his senior brother on the day of the wedding. However, the people here were all Wu Xiu. Although his voice was very soft, it still attracted some attention. Even Lin Shui seemed to have sensed something. Your words are really funny. Hui Yan faintly spoke. Lin Shui pulled Chen Yi over as he asked, What's wrong? Nothing much. Hui Yan turned around with a smile on his face. I'm trying to find out if any of the beauties in your sect are already married. If there aren't any, I might be able to find some good matches among the people here. Although his words sounded like a joke, and if the relationship between both parties was very good, it wouldn't matter. But coming from the mouth of Hui Yan, it was obvious that he was extremely disrespectful to the beauties around Qin Wenin. However, the crowd didn't feel this way. The sect of the Chen clan's son-in-law was so weak, and the banquet was hosted by the Chen clan. If these beauties could hook up with a descendant of the Chen clan, it would definitely be a wonderful thing for them. Hence, many people had expressions of interest on their faces. Chapter 12:17. Nephew Hu's words make sense. To think that there are so many good maidens in Nephew Lin's sect. If there are no marriages, us elders might be able to play matchmaker for them. An elder smiled. I wonder if this young lady is already married? A young man glanced in the direction of Mo Qingqing as he inquired. This young man had an elegant demeanor and had an extraordinary background. He should be able to attract Mo Qingqing's attention. However, Mo Qingqing didn't even glance at him. She merely held onto Qin Wentian's hand, causing the expression of that young man to stiffen. He naturally understood Mo Qingqing's meaning. Hui Yan stared at Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing as a hint of jealousy flashed in his eyes. At this moment, Lin Shui walked over. His face was filled with unhappiness. He was very clear of the status of this junior apprentice brother of his. Qin Wenin was someone who could speak on equal terms with immortal kings, and he could even meet with the Emperor Qianbian. These people actually dared to think that they would dare to make a move on Mo Qingqing? How ridiculous! In addition, the maidens beside Qin Wenin, Purgatory clearly had an extraordinary relationship with Qin Wenin. Qin Yao was Qin Wentian's elder sister, Yiling Shuang was his foster sister, and Luo Huan was his senior apprentice sister. With Qin Wentian present, how could these people dare to interfere? Even his junior apprentice sister, Lu Bingyu, was a proud and aloof person. How could she possibly be interested in these young men? He knew that the people of the Chen clan didn't regard him highly. But if the guests of the Chen clan wanted to covet the maidens beside Qin Wentian, they were far from qualified. What are you all doing? Today, the people of my sect came here to offer their congratulations, not to look for a husband. Lin Shuai's domineering eyes stared at Hui Yen as he spoke. His relationship with Chen Yi was extremely good, hence, he didn't care if the people of the Chun clan looked up to him or not. This wedding was only to give the Chun clan an explanation. After that, they would leave to temper themselves. He didn't care about the attitude of the Chun clan, but these people were disrespectful to his sect. Lin Shuai, mind your attitude. That's your brother-in-law. Chen Yi's elder brother, Chen Ao, walked over and coldly spoke. Hui Yen smiled at Lin Shuai as though he was watching a play. Everyone also had expressions of interest on their faces. Chen Ao was the elder brother of Lin Shuai and Hui Yen, and he had the same relationship with Lin Shuai and Hui Yen. But at this moment, he was berating Lin Shuai, who was about to get married, and shielding Hui Yen. From this, one could see the attitude of the Chun clan towards Lin Shuai. Senior brother, it's all right. Qin Wendian smiled. Since today was the wedding day of Lin Shuai and Chen Yi, he naturally didn't want to spoil the mood of the crowd. At the very least, he couldn't let Lin Shuai and the Chun clan fall out. If that happened, both senior brother Lin Shuai and Chen Yi would be in a difficult position. Junior brother Qin. Lin Shuai turned his gaze onto Qin Wendian, only to see Qin Wendian lightly nodding his head as he transmitted his voice. Senior brother, we came here to congratulate you, not to disturb your wedding day. However, if senior brother wants me to do anything, you can tell me at any time. Lin Shuai froze for a moment before nodding his head lightly. What are you guys doing? Lin Shuai, prepare yourselves, the wedding ceremony is about to begin. The Chen clan was a prominent clan. They naturally had their own wedding ceremony. Lin Shuai nodded, only to see Chen Yi looking at Qin Wendian with an apologetic expression on her face. What kind of attitude is this? Chen Shui coldly spoke upon seeing Lin Shuai and Chen Yi leaving. She didn't bother to hide, allowing Qin Wendian and the rest to hear her words clearly. From today onwards, that man will be the son-in-law of the Chen clan. Maybe he might even live in your clan in the future, becoming half a master. Hui Yen mocked. How dare he be so disrespectful to your brother-in-law? If it wasn't for giving face to little E, I would have asked my father to directly kick him out of the clan. Chen Shui icily spoke. Forget it, today is the wedding day, let's not spoil the mood. Hui Yen spoke in a hypocritical manner. The smile on his face was extremely fake. The conversation between the two of them was heard by Qin Wendian and the rest. The countenances of those from the Battle Sword sect were all extremely unsightly to behold. These two were treating Lin Shuai's sect as thin air. From this, one could very well imagine how much contempt these two had for Lin Shuai. We've all cultivated for so many years. Why are all of you so easily angered? Today, no one is allowed to spoil the mood. The old ancestor of the Battle Sword sect spoke when he saw the unhappiness on the faces of those from the Battle Sword sect. In such an occasion, even if they had to lose some face, they couldn't spoil the wedding between Lin Shuai and Chen Yi. Let's all go and watch the ceremony. The old ancestor spoke again. Everyone walked towards the center of the Chun clan. The wedding ceremony of the Chun clan first required them to pay respects to the ancestors of the Chun clan before serving tea to the elders and greeting their siblings, as well as their brother-in-law. Although the elders of the Chun clan didn't approve of Chen Yi and Lin Shuai being together, since Chen Yi had already agreed to it, they wouldn't intentionally make things difficult for them. Even Chen Ao, who had a cold expression on his face, after Chen Yi and Lin Shuai greeted each other, he still brought out some gifts to express his congratulations. However, when it was Hui Yen and Chen Shui's turn, Lin Shuai and Chen Yi stood in front of them, preparing to bow. However, Chen Shui directly evaded, causing the gazes of everyone to land on her. I'm not worthy of such a bow. Chen Shui unhappily spoke. Chen Shui. Father Chen solemnly spoke. This daughter of his actually dared to cause trouble at this moment. Elder sis, if Lin Shuai and I did anything wrong, you can tell us. Little E will apologize to elder sis and brother-in-law first. Chen Yi bowed as she spoke. Little E, this has nothing to do with you. Chen Shui spoke. Little E, your elder sis isn't unhappy with you. I just feel that it's a pity. After all, you are so outstanding. Hui Yen sighed. but a smile still hung on his face. Although he didn't finish his sentence, it was undoubtedly a slap to Lin Shuai's face. This bastard! Sword's sovereign Ling Tian's countenance turned ashen when he saw his beloved disciple being purposely made things difficult for him. Yi Lingshuang's gaze was also extremely cold. She stared at Qin Wenyan, who was beside her, as she transmitted her voice. Wenyan, although senior brother Lin Shuai doesn't wish to borrow your fame to raise his own status, this person's cultivation base is only at the celestial phenomenon realm. Maybe he is just relying on the power behind him to humiliate senior brother. Wenyan, can you use a more gentle method to help senior brother? Under the precondition that you don't ruin the wedding ceremony. Sister Lingshuang. Qin Wenyan transmitted his voice to her. Senior brother has his own pride. If senior brother is unwilling, I won't force my thoughts onto him. This is a sign of respect to senior brother. Also, I've already hinted to senior brother that as long as he agrees, I will naturally do something. Yi Lingshuang nodded her head lightly, hoping that senior brother Lin Shuai would be able to think things through. She didn't like to borrow Wentian's prestige, but Lin Shuai loved to use it to bully others. Hua Yan's words caused Qin Yi to feel extremely unhappy when she heard it. She held onto Lin Shuai's hand, but she didn't even look at Qin Shui and Hua Yan. She didn't bow, but directly walked past them and bowed to another elder sister. Hua Yan's smile instantly froze on his face. Staring at the numerous gazes directed at him, Hua Yan felt a chill in his heart. Was this a show of disrespect for him? Elder sister looked. A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face when he saw Qin Yi's determination. He finally understood why his senior brother Lin Shuai was willing to throw away some face just to marry Qin Yi. Back then when he was together with the Mo Qingqing, didn't he also encounter many objections? Chen Shui and Hua Yan's lips twitched, but they were restrained by Papa Chen's gaze. After the ceremony, the guests all gave their blessings. After which, Papa Chen spoke, Qin Ao, Qin Shui, go and help them with the arrangements. Qin Ao and the others nodded. After that, they walked towards a middle-aged man in green and bowed. Senior one, please take the seat of honor. How can I do that? The seats of honor should be reserved for those closest to me. The middle-aged man in green shook his head and smiled. Brother one, there's no need to be so polite. If you don't sit, who else can? Papa Chen personally stepped forward and bowed. This middle-aged man's status was extremely high, and he came from an extremely powerful clan that belonged to an immortal king power. There was an immortal king expert in his clan who lived not too far away and had some friendship with Papa Chen. This was why he came here to attend this banquet. Since this is the case, it would be impolite of me to refuse. The middle-aged man in green nodded. The middle-aged man in green sat at the seat of honor. Many people clasped their hands to greet him as they chatted with him. Chen Ao, Qin Shui and the others continued to arrange the seats of the guests. Qin Wenyan and the others from the Battle Sword sect were completely ignored. Seeing that the seats were almost full, even the serving maids were seated at the very back. Only now did Qin Shui and Hua Yan walk over. Hua Yan smiled, everyone my apologies. Before this, we didn't know that Lin Shuai also had a sect. Hence, we weren't able to prepare so many seats for the guests. Why don't you all take the seats at the very back? The people from the Battle Sword sect all had cold expressions on their faces. Yi Lingshuang coldly spoke, is this the Chen clan's way of etiquette? We didn't even invite you guys in the first place. You guys actually came here on your own accord. Could it be that you guys want to sit at the top with your status? Chen Shui impolitely spoke in a low voice. Do you guys know who Senior One is? He's an expert from an immortal king clan. Do you guys think that you are qualified to sit together with him? Lin Shuai stood on the ceremonial stage. There was no trace of a happy smile on his face. Today was his wedding day and he didn't really care about his face. However, he didn't expect that the people from the Chun clan would intentionally make things difficult for those from his sect. Chen Shui's words entered his ears without missing a single word. Ladies, if there aren't any seats, feel free to squeeze a little. A young man smiled as he glanced at the beauties from the Battle Sword sect. His tone contained hints of mockery. That young man also came from a powerful clan and hence, he didn't feel any taboo. That senior one kept staring at Qin Wenyan in the direction of the battle sword sect. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he asked Father Qin, "What's the name of that handsome young man in white?" "They are from Lin Shuai's sect. That young man should be his junior apprentice brother, but he should have encountered some good fortune. His aura is extraordinary and his aura is retracted." However, the two beauties beside him seemed to be at the Immortal Foundation realm. Father Qin spoke in a light voice. He didn't really care about a few Immortal Foundation experts. After all, there were many Immortal Foundation experts among the guests. "Do you know his name?" the green-robed middle-aged man asked. "Before this, I heard Lin Shuai referring to him as Junior Apprentice Brother Qin. Do you need me to ask him?" Father Qin asked. Qin. The heart of the green-robed middle-aged man trembled. Seems like he was right. His Wen clan was an immortal king-ranked power in the Cloud Prefecture. How would a power of this level dare to ignore an existence like the immortal Qiandian Gate? In his Wen clan, there were many important characters of the immortal Qiandian Gate. Among them, there was an extremely important character named Qin Wenyan. Seems like he had to inform the old ancestor to make a trip here. After all, he didn't have the qualifications to converse with such a character. Chapter 12:18. On the stage, Chen Yi held onto Lin Shuai's hand, smiling as she stared ahead. She exerted some force in her grip, tightly holding onto Lin Shuai's palm. She could feel Lin Shuai's embarrassment, and this was also her embarrassment. "I really don't care about this wedding. Even if there are some unpleasantness, I won't mind." Chen Yi transmitted her voice to Lin Shuai. "If you are unhappy, just show it. After this, we will leave. Even if you want to do something, you just need to follow your heart. This wedding should be given to you. It's just that marrying me would cause you to lose face in front of everyone." Lin Shuai sighed. "I'm fine. Since I've already made my choice, I don't care about anything else. On the other hand, the people from your sect suffered some grievances. Also, from Huo Yan's attitude, it seems like he isn't willing to let this matter rest." Chen Yi helplessly spoke. She also didn't expect that the people who humiliated Lin Shuai's sect would actually be her smiling brother-in-law and her elder sister Qin Shui. "How can I bear to spoil our wedding?" Lin Shuai sighed. His gaze turned in the direction of Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan instantly sensed it and turned to Lin Shuai. After that, he only saw his senior brother nodding lightly at him. Qin Wenyan laughed. He then turned to Purgatory behind him. "Since someone invited you, go and take a seat." Purgatory nodded. After that, she walked in the direction of the young man who spoke earlier. This young man was a descendant of the Wan clan. His power in this region wasn't small. His name was Wan Jiansheng and he cultivated the sword Wuxiu. When he saw Purgatory walking towards him, a look of joy involuntarily appeared on his face. He instantly stood up and offered a seat to her with a smile. "Little miss, please take a seat." Purgatory didn't stand on ceremony and directly sat down. Qin Wenyan smiled. "Let us sit at the back. Let's not disturb senior brother's wedding." When everyone saw that Qin Wenyan had spoken, they naturally nodded. Even Sword Sovereign Ling Tian didn't have any objections. The group of them really walked to the back of the banquet hall and sat together with many maids. When Qin Shui and Huo Yan saw this scene, expressions of mockery appeared on their faces. In the end, he still had some self-awareness. Those from the Battle Sword sect all sat down. Even the serving girls had looks of disdain on their faces. But because of their statuses, they didn't dare to speak carelessly. Their eyes were filled with disdain. "Lin Shuai." Chen Yi glanced at Lin Shuai beside her. "Leave it to junior apprentice Brother Qin." Lin Shuai held onto Qin Yi's hand as he spoke. Chen Yi had a puzzled expression on her face. "Leave it to junior apprentice Brother Qin? Let's go toast." Lin Shuai no longer cared about the attitudes of the crowd. Originally, he didn't want his relationship with Chen Yi to be tainted by external impurities. He only wanted it to be simple and simple. However, it seemed that these impurities were everywhere. He didn't want to use Qin Wentian's identity to show off his strength, but because of this, others would look down on him and even humiliate him. In that case, he could only let junior brother Qin Wentian handle it. Of course, he believed that with Qin Wentian's current status and his experience in the immortal domain, he would definitely be able to handle the matter perfectly. All right. Hearing Lin Shuai's words, Qin Yi naturally didn't take it to heart. She walked towards the banquet with Lin Shuai and raised her cup to the green-robed middle-aged man. Lin Shuai, little E, this is Senior Wen. Father Qin intentionally introduced. Senior Wen. Lin Shuai raised his cup in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. His words caused Father Qin to furrow his brows. This Lin Shuai didn't know how to read the situation. The person he personally introduced clearly had an extraordinary status, yet Lin Shuai merely greeted him in a casual manner. However, the green-robed middle-aged man didn't seem to mind. He directly stood up and smiled at Lin Shuai. Noble nephew Lin Shuai's demeanor is extraordinary. I believe that in the future, you will have a bright future ahead of you. I hope that noble nephew and niece will be able to grow old together. Mr. Fong, there's no need to be so polite. Father Chen hurriedly spoke, indicating for the middle-aged man to sit down. However, the green-robed middle-aged man waved his hands. It's what I should do, it's what I should do. If noble nephew and niece are free in the future, you can come visit my Fong clan often. We will definitely treat you as esteemed guests. After speaking, he drained his cup in a single gulp, appearing extremely forthright. After that, he stared at Lin Shuai with interest, as though he admired Lin Shuai. This caused Lin Shuai and Qin Yi to feel somewhat puzzled. However, they didn't think too much about it and continued to toast to the guests. Chen Ao, Chen Shui and the others also accompanied them to toast to welcome the guests. After all, there were so many guests, their brothers and sisters naturally had to help out. However, as they walked, Hui Yen walked towards Qin Wentian and the others who were seated at the end of the line. He smiled. Everyone, you all came from afar, I've truly wronged you all. It's just that this is how the prestigious clans of the Battle Sword sect are. Everything depends on one's status. The meaning behind his words was naturally that those from the Battle Sword sect who were seated at the end of the line had a lower status. Hence, it was only natural for them to behave in such a manner. Naturally, we won't. Yi Lingshuang coldly replied. There's no lack of snobbish people everywhere. If we take offense, wouldn't we be asking for a snub? In addition, it's fine if some snobbish people have the capital to do so. But they are clearly ant-like characters, yet they still think they are lofty existences. Do you really want to bother with such shameless blind people? Hui Yan's gaze froze, staring at the coldness in Yi Lingshuang's eyes. An expression of interest involuntarily appeared in his eyes as he smiled. This young miss probably hasn't seen much of the world and thinks that just being at the celestial phenomenon realm is already a lofty position. If you are still single, why don't you follow me to my clan to broaden your horizons? Maybe you might even have a chance to become a concubine of an immortal. We came from a small place and truly haven't seen much of the world. Hence, we have always maintained our humility. Unlike you, a mere celestial phenomenon ascendant like Wu Xiu, you are even more arrogant compared to immortal kings. Yi Lingshuang sarcastically spoke. When she was at the immortal Qianbian Gate, she had interacted with immortal kings before. All of them had warm smiles on their faces, exuding elegance and grace. How could she be so despicable? Immortal king? Hui Yen had a mocking smile on his face. Using such a method to elevate yourself? Aren't you being too vain? Such lofty existences, how could they even meet them? As he spoke, he poured the wine in his cup onto the ground and departed. How was he here to propose a toast? Son-in-law Hua is a direct descendant of the Hua clan and has a chance to inherit the position of clan leader in the future. His status is extraordinary, and since you guys are the seniors of his sect, comparing the two of you. A serving girl at the side spoke in a light voice. The serving girls all lowered their heads and giggled. These people were truly shameful. To think that I was actually looked down upon by a serving girl. Qin Wentian speechlessly smiled bitterly. On the other side, Wang Jiansheng stared at purgatory beside him. The more he looked at her, the more his heart stirred. Purgatory exuded an innate demonic sense of beauty, causing the heartbeats of people to quicken involuntarily. I wonder if this beauty has someone in mind? Wang Jianxing moved closer to Purgatory. His hand that was holding onto the wine cup moved towards Purgatory's arm. But at the instant his hand came into contact with Purgatory's arm, he screamed in shock. The wine cup directly fell to the ground as his arm trembled. Everyone turned their gazes over. Purgatory stared at Wang Jianxing and asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Wang Jianxing frowned. Earlier at that instant, he felt a warm current flowing into his hand, causing him to feel some piercing pain. Everyone shifted their gazes away. Wang Jianxing continued to probe with his words, but Purgatory merely sat there coldly, as though she couldn't be bothered to waste her breath. But the more she acted this way, the more Wang Jianxing's heart itched. He coldly laughed in his heart. Someone from Lin Shuai's sect had such a despicable status. Although this woman was beautiful, how could she be mentioned in the same breath as him? Even if he wanted to marry this woman, it would be extremely easy. Yet, this woman actually didn't even bother to glance at him. When he thought of this, Wang Jianxing's heart stirred. When he stared at Purgatory's flawless face, his guts grew bigger. With a twist of his body, he actually pretended to fall over as he lunged towards Purgatory. However, there wasn't any panic in his eyes. He stared fixedly at Purgatory's ample bosom as his devil claws stretched out. Arg! A scream of misery rang out. Wang Jianxing naturally didn't manage to touch Purgatory. At the instant his devil claws stretched out, a terrifying heat current directly gushed into his body. Half of his body was instantly charred black as he screamed in agony. This scene shocked everyone so much that they stood up and turned their gazes over. Jianxing! A middle-aged expert from the leader's seat flashed over. When he saw Wang Jianxing's injuries and how one of his arms was crippled, his expression instantly turned ashen as he stared at Purgatory. Lowly slave. This expert couldn't care less that this was Lin Shuai's wedding. Hui Yan and Chen Shui immediately flew over. Hui Yan stared at Purgatory as he spoke. "How dare you act so viciously on the wedding day? As expected of a bunch of trash from a major power. Even if you are from Lin Shuai's sect, we won't spare you today." Many people had expressions of interest on their faces as they watched with interest. This was especially so for some Immortal Foundation experts. They could sense that Purgatory was also an immortal. Only to see that at this moment, Purgatory slowly stood up. Instantly, a terrifying immortal might gushed forth from her as a fiery heat enveloped the entire space. For a moment, Hui Yan, who was at the front, was directly suffocated by the pressure as he perspired profusely. How powerful! At this moment, the eyes of many flashed with shock. The cultivation base of this woman was so high? Even the expressions of those Immortal Foundation experts changed as they all stood up in shock. Who did you guys say is a lowly slave? Purgatory's expression was as cold as ice. She stared at Hui Yan and the middle-aged expert beside Wang Jianxing. Even that middle-aged expert felt a sense of pressure under Purgatory's pressure. One must know that his cultivation base was at the 6th level and the aura of this woman wasn't any weaker compared to him. Lin Shuai, Chen Yi and the others also arrived. Chen Yi's eyes flashed with shock. This woman was actually so powerful. Father Chen also arrived. The middle-aged expert beside Wang Jianxing had an ashen expression as he spoke. "Brother Chen, how does Brother Chen intend to deal with the fact that my son's arm was crippled during the wedding? This woman is too impudent. She actually dared to display her might in public." Hui Yan's father also walked over, standing in front of Hui Yan as he coldly stared at Purgatory. On the other side, Qin Wenin slowly put down the wine cup in his hand as he inclined his head. Chapter 12:19. Father Chen glanced at Purgatory before checking the injuries on Wang Jianxing's arms. Although they were destroyed by immortal energy, they could still be healed with precious immortal medicines. "Brother Wan, our Chen clan will do our best to treat the injuries of virtuous nephew." Father Chen spoke to Wang Jianxing's father. The Wan clan was equal to his Chen clan. He naturally couldn't afford to offend them. As for you, Father Chen stared at Purgatory with a look of surprise on his face. Before this, he already felt that this maiden's aura was extraordinary and there was a high possibility that she was an immortal foundation character. Seems like it was true now, and she was even stronger than he had expected. Lin Shuai's sect still had many geniuses that appeared. Their strength had already surpassed the elders of the sect. My Chen clan will treat his injuries. Miss, just apologize. Father Chen spoke. Brother Chen, is an apology enough? How would Wang Jianxing's father let this go so easily? What does Brother Wang want? Father Chen asked. This maiden is too arrogant. Hand her over to me and I will bring her back to the Wang clan. Wang Jianxing's father spoke. Father, it's already a grievance for little E to marry Lin Shuai. To think that someone from Lin Shuai's sect actually dares to be so arrogant. This is simply unforgivable. Hui Yan coldly spoke. The cultivation base of this maiden was actually so high? This made him extremely unhappy. Purgatory. At this moment, a voice drifted over. Everyone turned their heads only to see Qin Wenin, who was seated at the end of the row. Today is my senior brother's wedding. Don't spoil the mood. Qin Wentian spoke. Purgatory didn't say anything. She quietly walked back to Qin Wentian's side. Everyone stared at Qin Wenin, guessing who this man was exactly. It seemed that this maiden was more obedient to him. Senior brother, the elders of our sect and I came here today to sincerely congratulate you. It's just that there's actually someone who dares to say such disrespectful words to you on your wedding day. This is something I cannot tolerate. Qin Wentian stared at Lin Shuai as he spoke. After that, his gaze landed on Hui Yan. Earlier, you spoke rudely, and now you speak again. I want to ask you something. Your cultivation base isn't even comparable to my senior brother, so where did you get the courage to point your fingers here? And what identity do you have to speak here? I'm little Yi's brother-in-law. How dare you tell me what to do? Hui Yan was extremely unhappy when he saw the contempt in Qin Wentian's eyes. Since you're my brother-in-law, you should be of the same generation as my senior brother Lin, and your relationship should be equal. Even if your cultivation base is lower than his, what right do you have to talk so much? Qin Wentian said. Hui Yan sneered. The Chen clan is a prestigious clan, and so is my Hua clan. That's why I have a relationship with Chen Shui. But what does your sect count as? In that case, you came here with the identity of a member of the Hua clan. Bluntly speaking, you feel that you are a tier higher than others because of your background. In reality, you are nothing but trash. Qin Wentian calmly spoke. Since you're using the identity of a member of the Hua clan to point fingers at my senior brother's wedding day and even humiliate my senior brother's sect, calling my friend a lowly slave. The Hua clan should be very powerful, right? Truly a fellow who has never seen the world before. Someone mocked. The Hua clan is a peak power in this generation and has many Immortal Foundation experts. There are even quite a few who stand at the peak of Immortal Foundation. What do you think? Hui Yan had a cold smile on his face. His back was ramrod straight, as though he felt very honored. Brother Chen, shouldn't such a person be directly expelled? Wang Jianxing's father coldly spoke. How does the Chen clan treat their guests exactly? At this moment, another person spoke. Just when Father Chen was preparing to express his stance, the green-robed middle-aged man from the Fong clan walked over with a look of unhappiness on his face. Father Chen's heart trembled. He didn't expect that the people from Lin Shuai's sect would actually anger him. Most probably, it was because of that female who injured him. Seems like he could only expel the people from Lin Shuai's sect. You guys are truly laughable. Chen Ao stared at Qin Wentian and the others as he berated. Wang Jianxing's father and Hui Yan's father both had smiles on their faces as they stared at the green-robed middle-aged man walking over to uphold justice. Brother Fong. The few of them bowed. These people are too arrogant. I didn't expect that Brother Fong would be alerted. Hui Yan's father spoke. Uncle Fong, there's no need to trouble you with this matter. Hui Yan bowed to the green-robed middle-aged man, extremely polite. Who's your uncle? All of a sudden, a cold voice drifted over. Hui Yen froze as he inclined his head and stared at the green-robed middle-aged man. He only saw coldness flickering in the eyes of the middle-aged man as he icily spoke. As the son-in-law of the Chen clan, you actually dare to humiliate the people from Lin Shuai's sect in such a setting? Don't you feel that your status is too high and mighty? Brother Fong. Hui Yan's father's mind spun. He completely couldn't understand why the green-robed middle-aged man would have such an attitude. This person came from an immortal king power and had a respectable status. However, he was humble and didn't put on airs. If there wasn't a reason, he wouldn't have acted in such a manner. Huahan, how can you teach your son like this? I thought you were someone worth befriending in the past. From today onwards, I, Fong, will sever all relations with your Hua clan. The green-robed middle-aged man spoke in a booming voice, his words causing everyone in the surroundings to be stunned. They had no idea what was going on exactly. What was going on exactly? Fong. Wan Jianxing's father, who was at the side, called out in a trembling voice. And you? Before Wan Jianxing finished speaking, the green-robed middle-aged man turned to him and spoke. Wan Jianxing publicly took liberties with someone from Lin Shuai's sect. Do you think we're blind? This small lesson is already considered a light punishment. You actually want the Chen clan to hand Wan Jianxing over to you? Do you think the Chen clan has the qualifications to capture someone from Lin Shuai's sect? Brother Fong, please calm your anger. Father Chen consoled. Brother Chen. The green-robed middle-aged man glanced at Father Chen. Father Chen relaxed when he heard that the way the middle-aged man addressed him didn't change. Chen Shuai and Hui Yen are too outrageous. If you encounter anything, don't protect the two of them. Moreover, today is the day of little E and nephew Lin Shuai's wedding, so it should be a joyous occasion. How can we allow these rascals to cause trouble on such a joyous occasion? The green-clothed middle-aged man lectured earnestly. Brother Fong is right. Father Chen hurriedly nodded. He suddenly recalled the attitude the middle-aged man had towards Lin Shuai. Noble nephew Lin Shuai? Also, earlier, this middle-aged man seemed to have inquired about Lin Shuai's junior brother. Could it be? Father Chen was naturally an intelligent man. When he thought of this, a light flashed through his mind. Could it be that this middle-aged man originated from some aristocratic clan? However, he didn't understand. If this was the case, why would he join such a weak sect like Lin Shuai? The Hua and Wan clans are too outrageous. In the future when we meet, just treat us as strangers. We no longer have any relationship with each other. The green-robed middle-aged man spoke in a cold tone. Qin Wenin sat there quietly as he watched everything unfold. Such a situation was something he didn't expect. Also, at this moment, that green-robed middle-aged man actually started walking towards him. Everyone naturally saw this as well. They stared at the green-robed middle-aged man who was walking step by step towards Qin Wenin. Lin Shuai, little E, come with me. Father Chen spoke and followed after him. Qin Wenin inclined his head and stared at the figure before him. He didn't know who this person was. The middle-aged man was currently holding onto a wine cup as he stood before him. Before this, I, Fong, was still bewildered. I didn't know which character would have such a carefree demeanor until I suddenly recalled that I once had a chance to see young Lord Qin's portrait. Hence, I came here to propose a toast. I hope young Lord Qin won't blame me for being rude. As he spoke, under the shocked gazes of everyone, this green-robed middle-aged man who was so domineering when facing the major characters from the Hua and Wan clans, was now holding onto a wine cup with both hands as he respectfully leaned forward. His back was extremely low, as though he was looking down on Qin Wenin. Although Father Chen had already guessed that Qin Wenin might be a descendant of an aristocrat clan, he was still so shocked that he halted his steps when he saw this scene. This green-robed middle-aged man was named Fong Huai. He was from an immortal king aristocrat clan and had an extraordinary status. Even if Qin Wenin was a descendant of an ordinary immortal king aristocrat clan, he should be able to treat them the same way. But right now, his attitude was extremely humble. This didn't seem to be how one would treat an ordinary immortal king aristocrat clan. Unless, Qin Wenin came from a power even stronger than the Fong clan. Not only that, his power was much stronger than the Fong clan. When he thought of this, Father Chen's heart trembled. This was an opportunity. But sadly, he had almost offended this young man to death. That bastard Hui Yen and Lin Shuai actually didn't mention this before. Hui Yen and the others were all stunned by this scene. When they saw the green-robed middle-aged man proposing a toast, just when they thought that Qin Wenyin would stand up and return the toast, they discovered to their astonishment that Qin Wenyin had no intentions of standing up at all. He only quietly stared at the green-robed middle-aged man, thinking that this man was truly an intelligent man. How could it be that he just found out about his identity? Clearly, he already knew about it long ago, but he didn't warn Father Chen, choosing to wait quietly until an opportunity to befriend him appeared. Only then did he unhesitatingly step out to express his goodwill. This green-robed middle-aged man naturally couldn't be considered a good person. Naturally, Qin Wenyin didn't mind the intentions of this man. The appearance of this middle-aged man at this moment was indeed timely. Hence, a strange scene appeared. The descendant of an immortal king aristocrat who was sitting at the head of the table, a lofty character, simply stood there with his wine cup in hand, not showing any signs of impatience at all. Yet, the young man quietly sat there, appearing extremely calm. Father Chen's heart pounded even more violently when he saw this scene. He simply didn't dare to continue guessing. Who exactly was this young man? Lin Shuai, who is your junior brother? Father Chen transmitted his voice to Lin Shuai. Lin Shuai glanced at him, silently sighing at the reality of human nature. He didn't want to borrow the prestige of his junior brother, but instead, he was treated with disdain and his sect was humiliated. However, even before Qin Wenyin stated his identity, his father-in-law, was already feeling uneasy. At this moment, an incomparably terrifying aura suddenly gushed over. The crowd inclined their heads in shock, only to see a supreme silhouette descending from the sky. We pay our respects to the old ancestor. The green-robed middle-aged man's follower knelt on the ground as he respectfully called out, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. The old ancestor of the Fong clan. An immortal king expert has arrived. This old ancestor of the Fong clan who just arrived appeared to be extremely young. He directly landed beside the green-robed middle-aged man, his gaze landing on Qin Wenyin as he clasped his hands. I'm Fong Mu of the Fong clan. I didn't expect that I would be able to witness young Lord Qin's glory here. It's truly an honor. As the sound of his voice rang out, it was like a thunderbolt from the clear skies. Everyone stood up in shock. Chapter 12:20. Fong Clan Fong Mu. The ancestor of the Fong clan, an immortal king. In this region, the strongest clan was the Fong clan, the leader of an immortal king clan. A lofty immortal king, an existence that people could only look up to. At this moment, he personally stepped into the Chen clan. This was supposed to be the supreme glory of the Chen clan, but was the Chen clan truly glorious? At this moment, Papa Chen was only nervous. The ancestor of the Fong clan had personally arrived, but he wasn't here for the wedding, but for one person. And this person was the junior brother of his son-in-law, Lin Shuai. This junior brother was humiliated by his other son-in-law, Hui Yen, and many people rolled their eyes at him. This junior brother was supposed to be a distinguished guest, but his son-in-law and daughter arranged for him to sit in a corner with the maids, and he was mocked by others. This junior brother, the woman beside him was humiliated, and they were discussing how to capture him and send him to the Wan clan to be punished. How could Papa Chen not be nervous? Of course he was nervous. Not only was he nervous, he was also regretful and he wanted to slap himself on the head. At this moment, if he still didn't understand that Qin Wenyin was a disciple of a supreme clan, then there must be something wrong with his brain. He naturally wouldn't suspect that the ancestor of the Fong clan, Fong Mu, would make a mistake like this. How could an immortal king make such a mistake? This was as stupid as suspecting that an immortal would be killed by a mortal. When he saw the green-robed middle-aged man toasting Qin Wenyin, he had already started to overestimate Qin Wentian's status. But evidently he still underestimated him, and by a huge margin. An immortal king had personally come and addressed the young man as young Master Qin. He simply didn't dare to imagine what kind of status this young man had. People of such status were usually people he could only look up to. They were high above, and he couldn't afford to get close to them. But when this young man came to their clan to attend a banquet, they treated him like this. One could well imagine Papa Chen's current mood. Hui Yen, Chen Shui, Chen Ao, these bastards. Papa Chen cursed in his heart. My junior brother is from the immortal Qianbian Gate. At this moment, Lin Shuai's voice traveled into Papa Chen's ears, replying to his words. At this moment, Papa Chen's heart violently twitched, and he sucked in a breath of cold air, feeling that his mind was a little muddled. So that was the case. No wonder, an immortal king faction? The Thousand Transformations Immortal Sect was on equal footing with the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect. They controlled 6 prefectures and had powerful immortal emperor-level existences. Wan Jianxing's father, Hui Yan's father, both of them were so frightened that their countenances turned pale. Earlier, they had actually offended Qin Wenin. They naturally understood what this meant. This meant that a single sentence from Qin Wenin could cause their entire clan to be annihilated from the Cloud Prefecture. Mu Clan of Mu. In Mu, the clan, the Yun Mu, was, Qin, was, and Mu. King Mu, Yun clan Mu, and they, Mu, Qin Mu, and clan and king had personally, clan Mu, Qin Shui, Mu, let alone them, even Lin Shuai's wife, Qin Yi, had her beautiful eyes frozen. Everyone stood up in shock. After that, they quietly stared ahead. The immortal king stood before Qin Wenin. Qin Wenin was still seated, as though he had no intentions of standing up. Senior Fong is too polite. Please take a seat. Qin Wenin smiled. Given his current status, there was no need for him to care about an ordinary immortal king. But after all, an immortal king had personally come to pay a visit. Although he might have some ulterior motives, he still had to be courteous. But even so, he didn't act too courteously and stood up to welcome the immortal king. He knew that there was no need for him to stand up. This immortal king clearly knew of his identity. In that case, he represented the immortal Qianbian Gate. For a character who was known as the disciple of the Emperor Qianbian, why would he need to stand up and pay his respects to an ordinary immortal king of the Cloud Prefecture? Upon seeing Qin Wenin sitting there as though it was a matter of course, Fong Mu didn't have any strange expressions on his face. He actually sat opposite of Qin Wenin, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. An immortal king didn't even stand up when he came. Who was this man exactly? At this moment, Father Chen was no longer able to remain calm. An immortal king actually sat at the end of the banquet? Was this even possible? Senior. Father Chen walked over and respectfully stood there. Senior, please move to the main seat. Since young Master Qin is here today, I came to pay a visit. I am merely accompanying him. Wherever young Master Qin sits, I will naturally sit there. Fong Mu calmly smiled. As an immortal king, there was no need for him to deliberately flatter Qin Wenin. However, his words were still extremely beautiful. There was no other reason. What sort of character was Qin Wenin? It was rumored that he was the disciple that the Emperor Qianbian valued the most. For him, Qin Wenin had even started a war with the Dongshengshan Gate. The Dongshengshan Gate had always wanted to kill him but failed to do so. For such an existence, regardless of how glorious his future would be, since his Fong clan was located in the Cloud Prefecture city and had a close relationship with the disciple of the Emperor Qianbian, it could be said that there were only benefits and no disadvantages for the Fong clan. If the Fong clan had some changes in the future, with the disciple of the Emperor Qianbian, who would dare to touch the Fong clan? If it wasn't for this, why would an immortal king like him personally come here? Father Chen's heart trembled even more. His gaze was complicated as he stared at Qin Wenin. His eyes were filled with deep regret as he spoke. Chen, didn't know young Master Qin's identity. Before this, the people of my Qin clan have offended you. I hope that young Master Qin can forgive me and move to the main seat. Earlier, a certain someone said that our statuses are lowly, we should just sit here. I have no idea who he is or what power he came from. But since he arranged for me to sit here, I will naturally stay here quietly. After all, I'm only here to celebrate my senior brother's birthday and have no intention of causing trouble. Clan Lord Qin, just go ahead and attend to my senior brother's wedding, there's no need to care about me. Qin Wenin calmly spoke, without the slightest bit of arrogance. Just like what he said, he came here today to attend the wedding and not to cause trouble. But at this moment, everyone was staring at him, not daring to sit down. Father Qin felt even more uneasy. He turned his head and stared at Hui Yan as he berated, "Hui Yan, why are you still not coming over? Go over." At this moment, Hui Yan's father didn't even bother about Father Chen's attitude. At this moment, how would he dare to do so? How could his Hui clan afford to offend someone who could cause an immortal king to personally pay a visit? Not only for him, Wang Jianxing's father was also trembling with fear as he pulled his son Wang Jianxing towards Qin Wenyan. My son is too rude. I Hui Yan, have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I hereby beg for forgiveness from young Lord Qin. Hui Yan's father bowed. One couldn't help but say that their ability to change the direction of the wind was truly amazing. However, Hui Yan clearly didn't have his father's comprehension. He was still struggling. Why are you still not apologizing to young Lord Qin? Hui Yan's father berated. Hui Yan still didn't speak, as though he was in extreme pain, struggling in his heart. I don't dare. Qin Wenyan coldly laughed in his heart when he saw the expression on Hui Yan's face. He calmly spoke, "Before this, my elder sister already said that even immortal kings aren't as arrogant as him. How can we afford to apologize to him? Before this, I also said that the reason why he dared to cause trouble at my senior brother's wedding was because of his identity as a member of the Hui clan. In that case, I will pay a visit to the Hui clan when I'm free. I want to see what the Hui clan of the Cloud Prefecture City is like exactly." Hui Yan and his son instantly turned as pale as paper. This was especially so for Hui Yan's father. These words were like a bolt from the blue to him. Given Qin Wentian's identity, what kind of situation would he be in if he paid a visit to the Hui clan? The Hui clan is truly an honor to be able to make young Lord Qin pay a visit. You guys still don't know young Lord Qin's identity, right? Back then, young Lord Qin obtained first place in the 100-year immortal banquet of the Dongshangshan Gate. The Emperor of Qianbian wanted to accept him as a disciple but was rejected. After that, young Lord Qin was brought away by the Emperor of Qianbian and established the immortal Qianbian Gate. There are rumors in the outside world that young Lord Qin is the beloved disciple of the Emperor of Qianbian. Hui Yan's father directly knelt on the ground, both his legs were trembling. The beloved disciple of the Emperor of Qianbian. These words were like thunder to him. His son actually dared to humiliate the disciple of the Emperor of Qianbian. This was simply, heavens, this was simply unimaginable. Kneel down, Hui Yan's father roared. With a plop, Hui Yan also knelt down. The last bit of pride he had was directly shattered. At this moment, his mind was in a complete mess. He actually dared to act so arrogantly in front of a disciple of a monarch? He was merely a member of a powerful immortal foundation clan, but in front of the immortal Qianbian Gate, a power that ruled over 6 prefectures, he was simply an ant. Wang Jianxing's father and Wang Jianxing were so frightened that they knelt down as well. Their countenances were as pale as paper. At this moment, Father Chen was stunned as well. Immortal Qianbian Gate. Lin Shuai said that Qin Wenyan came from the immortal Qianbian Gate, but he didn't say that he was the disciple of the Emperor of Qianbian. The junior apprentice brother of his son-in-law was the disciple of the Emperor of Qianbian. Qin Wenyan came to his home to attend his daughter's wedding and was actually humiliated, sitting at the very end. Father Chen's mind was completely numb. As for those serving girls who mocked him earlier, all of them were trembling in fear, not daring to raise their heads to look at Qin Wenyan. Young Lord Qin, please forgive us. Father Chen lowered his head extremely low. Even Qin Yi was stunned. She stared at Lin Shuai. She basically didn't dare to imagine that Lin Shuai would have such a junior apprentice brother. Little Yi, I didn't intentionally hide this from you. Junior apprentice brother Qin is my junior apprentice brother from our particle world. Later on, he was able to reach where he is today because of his own talent. Our sect is already under his protection. I don't wish to use the name of my junior apprentice brother to attract too much attention. Lin Shuai transmitted his voice to Chen Yi. Chen Yi slowly nodded her head, returning to her senses. She walked forward and spoke to Qin Wenin. Young Lord Qin, if my father has done anything inappropriate, I hope you won't blame him. Sister-in-law, what are you saying? Qin Wendian hurriedly stood up. He could ignore these people, but since Chen Yi was here, he naturally had to stand up. Senior brother Lin Shuai doted on this junior apprentice brother of mine very much back then, treating him like an elder brother. His wife is also my kin. Sister-in-law, you can just call me Wenian. Qin Wentian's voice was gentle, his words causing the gazes of everyone to look at Chen Yi in a different light. The sister-in-law of the beloved disciple of the Emperor of Qinbian, this wasn't an ordinary status. Father Chen's heart pounded violently. In the future, the Chen clan would have to depend on little Yi and Lin Shuai. In the future, he would definitely do his best to make up for the mistakes he made today. Chapter 12:21. Chen Yi could naturally feel a sense of closeness from Qin Wenin. Most probably, Lin Shuai and Qin Wenin had an extremely good relationship back then, which was why he treated her as his kin. If not, how could she be acquainted with such a character? Wendian. Chen Yi didn't act pretentious, she smiled and called out. Qin Wentian's smile grew even gentler. His gaze landed on Mo Qingqing who was beside him. Mo Qingqing walked up, causing the gazes of everyone to land on her. Right now, when they looked at Mo Qingqing again, they only felt that she was like a celestial maiden from the heavens, unreachable. She was Qin Wentian's woman. What was laughable was that earlier, there were actually many people who had the ridiculous thought that it was a pity for such a beauty to follow Qin Wenin. Sister Little Yi, this is a small token of our sincerity. Congratulations to you and senior brother. Mo Qingqing took out an interspatial ring and passed it to Chen Yi. Chen Yi started, she stared at Lin Shuai only to see Lin Shuai nodding his head lightly. Since this is the sincerity of junior brother Qin and sister-in-law Qingqing, just accept it. And Chen Yi nodded lightly, smiling sweetly at Mo Qingqing as she spoke in a low voice. Qingqing, you are so beautiful. Sister Little Yi is the same as well. Mo Qingqing smiled. Those from the battle sword sect all stood up. A moment later, Hui Yan, Wang Jianxing and the others all retreated, kneeling at the side. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, Yi Lingshuang and the others all felt that they had finally vented their anger. If it wasn't for Qin Wenin, they would have to endure this for a long time. Lin Shuai, Little Yi, this is a token of our sincerity. Please accept it. Everyone presented their gifts. Lin Shuai bowed to them. The gifts from the various elders, no matter what they are the most precious to me. If Lin Shuai said this before, he would surely be unhappy and even mocked. But now that he said it like this, no one dared to object. Chen clan leader, those eyesores shouldn't appear here. This is my senior brother's wedding. Just tell these people to scram. Qin Wenian couldn't be bothered to be calculative with these people. These people weren't worthy at all. Young Master Qin, please calm down. We will scram right away. Hui Yan's father knelt on the ground and hurriedly pulled Hui Yan and the rest away. Chen Shui's countenance stiffened. She didn't know if she should leave or not. Father Chen glanced at her and spoke, "You can scram with your husband." Chen Shui could feel the anger in her father's heart. It was no wonder that she and Hui Yan were the ones who had insulted Qin Wenian the most. Thinking back to how she had boasted and acted so arrogantly in front of Qin Wenian, she felt so ashamed that she couldn't show her face. She left with her tail between her legs. Lin Shuai was her brother-in-law, a close relative. Her brother-in-law's junior apprentice brother was the disciple of the Emperor Qianbian. Originally, she even had the opportunity to visit a legendary place like the immortal Qianbian Gate. But now, she knew that it was impossible. Let alone Lin Shuai and his sect, even her father and her younger sister wouldn't want to see her again. Those who mocked Qin Wentian's sect and teased the beauties around Qin Wenin all left with their tails between their legs. Since they knew of Qin Wentian's identity, it was clear that he wasn't a celestial phenomenon ascendant. Given his cultivation base, how could he not remember what people said before? Now that he didn't want to bother with them, what else could they do other than scram? Some of the elders of the Chun clan also arrived. After knowing of Qin Wentian's identity, all of them were filled with respect. Their gazes were extremely sharp when they stared at Father Qin, evidently unhappy with him. "Young Master Qin, it's better for you to change seats." Father Qin still didn't dare to be the slightest bit casual. Qin Wentian treated Qin Yi well because of Lin Shuai. Although he was Qin Yi's father, his attitude towards Lin Shuai's sect earlier couldn't be considered friendly. Not only that, from how Qin Wentian addressed him as Qin Clan Lord, it was clear that Qin Wentian wasn't very happy with him. "No need, the seats don't matter. It's also not bad to chat with Senior Fong here. Qin Clan Lord, you can go ahead and do what you need to do. I've already said that I'm merely here to accompany the guests. I only hope that my senior brother and sister-in-law's wedding would be a happy one." Qin Wentian spoke. At this moment, Father Qin also understood Qin Wentian's attitude. He nodded his head. This time, he really put his heart and soul into arranging the wedding of Lin Shuai and Qin Yi. He was always by Qin Wentian's side and didn't dare to be casual with Lin Shuai anymore. He didn't even know who his father-in-law was anymore. Qin Wentian and Fong Mu were chatting idly. There were no maids and maids around them, only a few elders of the Qin clan were accompanying them. At this moment, one of the elders raised his cup to Qin Wentian and drank a mouthful of wine. How would he dare to ask Qin Wentian to drink with him? "Young Master Qin, what do you think of the Qin clan's clan lord?" As soon as Qin Wentian said this, Father Qin, who had been paying attention to them, felt his heart tighten and his face turned slightly pale. The meaning behind Qin Wentian's words was extremely terrifying. As long as Qin Wentian said a word of dissatisfaction, his position as the clan lord would most likely come to an end. Although the Chen clan couldn't be compared to the immortal Qianbian Gate, it was still a distinguished clan. The ones who truly decided the position of the clan lord were the most powerful elders. "Why are you asking me about the Chen clan?" Qin Wentian frowned and said, "As long as my senior brother and sister-in-law are happy, I naturally won't have any opinions." As soon as Qin Wentian said this, Father Qin immediately heaved a sigh of relief. As expected, Qin Wentian was doing this for little Yi's sake. His position as the clan lord would depend on Lin Shuai and little Yi's attitude in the future. Fortunately, little Yi was his daughter. No matter what, she would still be on his side. However, when he spoke to Lin Shuai, he became more and more polite. Naturally, there wouldn't be any twists and turns in this wedding. Everyone revolved around Lin Shuai and Qin Yi. Qin Wentian and the others couldn't get close to them, and the other party wouldn't come in contact with them either. They could only build a good relationship with Lin Shuai and Qin Yi. Therefore, they all showed the highest enthusiasm. Qin Wentian and the others naturally understood the reason for all this. Given their senior brother's personality, he definitely wouldn't care about such hypocritical enthusiasm. Most probably, after this wedding, he would bring Qin Yi away from the Chen clan. As an immortal king expert, Fong Mu was an extremely intelligent character. Although he was polite and enthusiastic, he didn't show any signs of flattery, nor did he make any requests. He merely wanted to build a better relationship with Qin Wentian. Fong Mu most probably also understood that it was enough for him to make Qin Wentian have a good impression of him and the Fong clan during their first meeting. If he made any requests, most probably, Qin Wentian would ignore him. Lin Shuai and Qin Yi also came to Qin Wentian's side and sat down. Fong Mu smiled at Lin Shuai. "Nephew Lin Shuai, this time around I didn't prepare any gifts. Let me gift you a strand of protective immortal sense." Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. A strand of immortal sense from an immortal king was extremely precious. This Fong Mu knew that it was useless to him, hence, he gifted it to Lin Shuai to do Lin Shuai a favor. This Fong Mu was truly intelligent. Lin Shuai naturally understood Fong Mu's thoughts. He resolutely shook his head. Senior Fong is too polite. How would Junior dare to accept a strand of immortal sense from Senior? Fong Mu naturally wouldn't ask for anything in return for gifting him a strand of immortal sense. But this favor would be placed on Qin Wenyin. Lin Shuai naturally couldn't accept it. Feng Mu smiled and didn't reply. However, Qin Wenyin spoke. Since Senior Feng is so kind, senior brother, there's no need to stand on ceremony. If his senior brother wanted to go out for a walk, with the protection of an immortal king's strand of immortal sense, it was equivalent to having an extra life. But to him, this was merely a small favor. Feng Mu wouldn't ask him to do anything. At most, he would befriend Qin Wenyin. Chen Yi glanced at Lin Shuai and Qin Wenyin. From an emotional point of view, she naturally hoped that Lin Shuai would accept it. After all, the strand of immortal sense from an immortal king was something that no one in her Qin clan had such an opportunity. All right then. Lin Shuai smiled. There was no need for him to judge his junior brother Qin based on his own attitude. Given the status of Feng Mu and Qin Wenyin, they naturally understood that the strand of immortal sense couldn't represent too much. Hence, under the envious gazes of many, Feng Mu left a strand of immortal sense on Lin Shuai. This wedding would eventually come to an end. Qin Wenyin and the people of the Battle Sword sect bid their farewells. Lin Shuai and the experts of the Qin clan also sent them off. Senior brother Lin, sister-in-law, take care. Qin Wenyin and the experts of the Battle Sword sect clasped their hands and spoke. Under the gazes of everyone, they soared up into the air. Staring at Qin Wentian's pet transforming into a great rock, the people of the Qin clan were no longer surprised. Lin Shuai and Chen Yi both felt a sense of melancholy. In life, no matter what kind of brothers or good friends they still had to live their own lives. Separation was unavoidable. After this separation, it was unknown when they would meet again. In reality, things were just like what Qin Wenyin had guessed. After staying in the Qin clan for several days, Lin Shuai and Chen Yi left to roam the world. Although the people of the Qin clan wanted them to stay, if Lin Shuai wanted to leave, who would dare to stop them? After Qin Wenyin returned to the immortal Qianbian Gate, he busied himself with transforming the bodies of his loved ones. He didn't hesitate to go to auctions, using treasures to exchange for some medicinal pills for his loved ones to refine their bodies, as well as using cultivation arts to temper their bodies, all in preparation for breaking through to immortal foundation. Time flowed by. Qin Wenyin enjoyed this period of peace and quiet. Today, several immortal kings appeared in the Cloud Prefecture city. The immortal Qianbian Gate instantly learned of this and kept a close eye on them. They discovered that these experts were actually heading straight for the immortal Qianbian Gate. Outside the majestic ancient castle of the immortal Qianbian Gate, a group of experts stood there calmly. From the immortal Qianbian Gate, more and more experts appeared, staring at these newcomers. These experts all exuded a sharp aura, like unsheathed swords, not bothering to mask their sharpness. Everyone, why did you all come to the Cloud Prefecture city? An immortal king from the immortal Qianbian Gate asked. We are students from the Supreme Sword School and are here to pay a visit to the Emperor Qianbian. These people calmly replied. The hearts of the immortal kings trembled. Seems like the commotion caused by the Sacred Academy back then had finally caused the other party to make a move. Immortal kings directly appeared in the Cloud Prefecture city and came to the immortal Qianbian Gate. The Emperor Monarch is busy with his cultivation. I'm afraid he won't have the time. The immortal Qianbian Gate replied. Don't worry, we are willing to wait in the immortal Qianbian Gate. When the Emperor Monarch is free to meet us, we will pay a visit again. The people from the Supreme Sword School laughed, as though they were long prepared. Chapter 12:22. These people from the Supreme Sword School came in the name of visiting. What could the immortal Qianbian Gate do about it? They could either let these immortal kings stay outside or invite them into the immortal gate as guests. The former would make the immortal Qianbian Gate seem to lack the bearing of an emperor-level force. In that case, please follow me into the immortal gate to rest. However, the rules of the immortal Qianbian Gate still need to be followed, the powerhouse of the immortal Qianbian Gate said. Of course. The people from the Supreme Sword School nodded. Both sides appeared to be extremely polite, without the slightest bit of anger, as if they were old friends. There was no hostility at all. The people from the Immortal Qianbian Gate arranged for the immortal kings of the Supreme Sword School to stay in the Immortal Gate. There were also maids to serve them. However, when the people from the Supreme Sword School wanted to see the Emperor of Qianbian, they never saw him. As an immortal emperor and the master of the Immortal Qianbian Gate, it was natural for the Emperor of Qianbian to find a reason to refuse the visit of the immortal kings. Who could say anything? As for why they came, both sides were well aware. Of course, they came for Qin Wenyin. The Emperor of Qianbian was too lazy to explain anything to the other party and directly refused to see them. And Qin Wenyin left the Immortal Qianbian Gate. Evergreen Kingdom, Imperial Palace, Princess Chongping Residence. When Princess Chongping saw Qin Wenyin and the others, a gentle smile appeared in her beautiful eyes. Little guy, you have made great progress since the opening of the Tiandao Sacred Academy. Princess Chongping smiled. Princess, you are flattering me. I came to disturb you again today. Please forgive me, Princess. Qin Wenyin bowed and said, It doesn't matter. Perhaps this imperial palace will be half your home in the future. You can come whenever you want. It's just that you arrived before Qin came back from her sect. Princess Chongping invited Qin Wenyin into the residence as she spoke. 50 years ago, the Evergreen Kingdom Palace was surrounded by enemies from all sides. It was only because of the opening of the Tiandao Sacred Academy that there was peace for 50 years. Right now, the royal capital of the Evergreen Immortal Empire is no longer peaceful. You have arrived at the eye of the storm. I'm already involved. It's impossible for me to get out, Qin Wenyin said, shaking his head. I'm very curious about what exactly has happened in the Sacred Academy. Perhaps you don't know, but a few days ago, my elder brother said that our Evergreen Kingdom might be facing an extremely dangerous situation. In fact, the danger might even surpass the civil war back then. Princess Chongping stared at the floating clouds in the air. She could faintly sense the storm that was brewing beneath the calm skies. The various major powers of the immortal realms were keeping a close watch on their capital cities. Princess Chongping knew that right now, there were many immortal kings in the royal capital. Also, all of them came from different powers. Some things are destined to happen, it's unavoidable. Qin Wenyin thought back to the 50 years he spent in the Sacred Academy. It felt like a dream. These 50 years, regardless of whether it was for him or Qin, were extremely important. They had experienced a baptism. What needs to be faced has to be faced eventually. No matter who wants to touch my Evergreen Kingdom, they have to be prepared to pay the price. Let's see who dares to disregard the price and act against my Evergreen Kingdom. Princess Chongping's eyes suddenly turned sharp. Although she was a female, the might of an immortal king could be felt from her. Wenyin, during these few days, just rest in my residence. Qin Wenyin nodded his head lightly. In the eastern regions of the immortal realms, there was an extremely ancient mountain range. The scenery here was extremely beautiful, with immortal mountains all around. The immortal qi here was extremely dense, and at the peak of each mountain, there were all immortal residences. On an ancient peak in the center, the scenery was extremely beautiful. A group of maidens stood on a stone platform at the edge of the peak, staring at the scenery in the distance. Qin, the experts from the various major powers have arrived in the Evergreen Kingdom. Qin Wenyin has also received the news and has already arrived at Princess Chongping's residence. A maiden walked over and spoke to Qin. Thank you, senior sister. Qin replied in a light voice. You can head there first. If anything happens, we will immediately teleport to the royal palace through the teleportation array. Qin nodded. In an ancient palace of the Namhuang clan, Nanfeng Guhong sat there as someone came to make a report. The teleportation array leading to the Evergreen Kingdom and the Immortal Qianbian Gate is already in place. Right now, there are several immortal kings from the Supreme Sword School monitoring the situation at the Immortal Qianbian Gate. Qin Wenyin has gone to the Evergreen Kingdom, and the various major powers will also choose to descend to the Evergreen Kingdom. That person below reported. So it turned out that before this, there were experts from the Namhuang clan who contacted the Evergreen Kingdom and the Immortal Qianbian Gate. Both sides came to a temporary agreement, allowing the Namhuang clan to directly construct a spatial tunnel leading to the Evergreen Kingdom and the immortal Qianbian Gate. Such a spatial tunnel was impossible to be constructed by non-allied powers. One must know that the moment it was constructed, the army of the Namhuang clan could instantly descend to the Evergreen Kingdom and the immortal Qianbian Gate. If they had evil intentions, how terrifying would that be? But at this critical moment, the Evergreen Kingdom and the immortal Qianbian Gate actually agreed without any hesitation. Got it? Nanfeng Guhong nodded lightly. Her beautiful eyes flashed with an amused smile as she spoke in a low voice. Because of a few little fellows, all the major powers of the immortal realms were mobilized. This matter can be considered unprecedented. Leaving aside these peak powers that were constantly paying attention to the situation in the Evergreen Kingdom, even the people in the Evergreen Kingdom could feel the unusual atmosphere in the royal capital. During these days, extremely terrifying characters would often appear in groups. They would appear in groups and there would be many immortal kings gathered together. In a place like the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom, it wasn't strange to see immortal kings. But it was extremely rare for a group of immortal kings to move out. Even in the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom, there weren't many such powers. And now, there was news circulating around the Evergreen Kingdom that there were at least 4 to 5 such situations. In addition, they didn't seem to be concealing their tracks. Because everyone understood that the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom was the core of the Evergreen Kingdom. It was the territory of the Evergreen Kingdom. When a large number of experts entered the royal capital, their movements would already be known. There was basically no way to hide it. At this moment, it was unknown how many people in the dark were watching their every move. This undercurrent was surging in the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom. Qin had also returned from the mountain gate and gathered with Qin Wenyin. On this day, the vast and boundless royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom was bathed in the warm sunlight. The bright weather put everyone in a good mood. Not far away from the royal palace, in the air, a group of experts suddenly flew over. They were currently flying towards the royal palace of the Evergreen Immortal Empire. At this moment, countless people raised their heads and looked at the mighty figures. Was the surging undercurrent finally going to erupt? These experts advanced in the void. In another direction, there was also a mighty group of experts who began to rush towards the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom. Not only in one place, but in other places. Those forces that were quietly waiting in the royal capital at this moment seemed to have received a military order as they marched in the direction of the royal capital in an orderly manner. Finally, the first batch of experts arrived. A voice rang out within the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom is here to welcome the 2 princesses of the Evergreen Kingdom back to my Tenlon Heaven Kingdom for their wedding. The voice rumbled and spread to every corner of the city. It even continued to spread towards the imperial city. Back then, the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom made use of the agreement they signed with the defeated powers to request the 2 princesses, Qin and Azure, to marry into the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom. The Evergreen Kingdom didn't agree and a battle even broke out in the royal capital. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom initiated an immortal adjudication. The various peak powers of the eastern regions, Zidi, the Supreme Sword School, the Celestial Palace and the Taihua Immortal Dynasty all agreed to the adjudication, confirming that the agreement back then was valid. However, how could the Evergreen Kingdom agree? At that time, the Chongqing the Great summoned the Tiandao Sacred Academy, causing the entire immortal realms to tremble. The adjudication was temporarily set aside and now, it was said that the Immortal Foundation characters who entered the Sacred Academy have already walked out from the Sacred Academy. Also, a soul-stirring battle occurred within the Sacred Academy. These geniuses who walked out from the Sacred Academy, after countless years, how many of them would still be alive? How many of them would be able to reach the peak? Most probably, the number of them could be counted on one's fingers. The immortal realms were extremely cruel. If one wanted to climb to the peak, they either had to stand on a mountain of corpses and become a legend, or become a corpse under the feet of others. This was the fate of geniuses. Within the Evergreen Kingdom, numerous experts soared in the air, staring at the experts from the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom who were outside the royal palace. This isn't the era of ancient emperors. Why would there be an adjudication? Everyone, it's better for you all to return to Sky Mist. A voice rang out. How could the Evergreen Kingdom possibly hand over the person? The opening of the Sacred Academy indicates that the era of ancient emperors has arrived. Everything indicates that the adjudication is valid. As one of the adjudicators, our Supreme Sword School requests the Evergreen Kingdom to hand over the person. Another voice rang out. We hope that the Chongqing the Great will hand over the person. The Evergreen Kingdom, please abide by the adjudication. From all directions, voices rang out one after another. Each voice represented a major power, causing the entire royal palace to tremble. At this instant, everyone understood that this time around, the major powers were going to act for Rayal. In the teleportation array region of the Evergreen Immortal Empire, beams of terrifying spatial light flashed as a group of experts appeared, stepping out. These experts were actually all females, exuding magnificence that could transcend the generations. GD's followers had arrived. In the Princess Chongping residence, Qin Wenyan and Qing Er stood together. Although Qin Wentian's expression was calm, his heart was ice-cold. The major powers seemed to have chosen to act against the Evergreen Kingdom. They knew that if Qing Er was here, Qin Wenyan would be here as well. Senior apprentice sisters have arrived. Qing Er spoke when she saw the intense light. Qin Wentian nodded. A gust of wind blew as a group of extremely powerful disciples from GD's faction descended. They stared into the distance as one of the female disciples spoke. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom wants my junior apprentice sister to marry someone of a lower status. Have you ever asked my master if he agreed to this? This matter is an agreement between my Sky Mist Immortal Empire and the Evergreen Immortal Empire. People of Matriarch G's sect, it's best if you don't interfere. A domineering voice rang out, filled with a sense of urgency. Today, in the Evergreen Kingdom, the sky was clear and the wind blew. Chapter 12:23. The sky was clear, enveloping the Evergreen Imperial City. However, everyone in the city could feel the approaching hurricane. In the royal palace, many people fell silent when they heard the domineering reply. However, right at this moment, a dazzling light flashed as a figure stepped out. This figure exuded boundless magnificence. He was clad in azure robes, an emperor of the mortal world. Chongqing the Great. Many experts stared at the figure who appeared, only to see the Chongqing the Great walking in the air as he spoke. Immortal adjudication? Forgive me, Evergreen, for my ignorance. May I ask everyone, which ancient emperor gave the order to initiate the adjudication? As the sound of his voice rang out, no one replied. After all, even ordinary immortal emperors didn't have the qualifications to converse with the Chongqing the Great. The era of ancient emperors has already become a thing of the past. The adjudication is jointly initiated by all the major powers in the immortal realms. Evergreen, you broke the contract and violated the rules of the immortal realms. In the air, an incomparably terrifying figure appeared. This person seemed to have come from beyond the heavens. He was sitting on an incomparably fearsome elephant that resembled a divine elephant. Sky Mist Immortal Emperor. The Evergreen Immortal Emperor inclined his head and stared at the person who came. He smiled. To think that the matters of a junior would actually attract the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor to my Evergreen Immortal Empire. I wonder if I should feel honored? The adjudication is a major event in the immortal realms. Evergreen, since you didn't abide by it, we naturally have to make a trip here personally. Evergreen, you better not make a mistake. The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor calmly spoke. His appearance caused everyone to understand that the severity of this matter was far greater than what they had imagined. Nobody knew what these supreme characters were thinking in their hearts. Maybe they really wanted to use this chance to consign the Evergreen Immortal Empire to eternal damnation. If the Evergreen Kingdom was destroyed, the vast territories and resources would all be plundered by the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom and the other neighboring countries. Their cultivation resources, as well as their powerful innate techniques and cultivation arts, would all be seized. The countless geniuses born in the Evergreen Kingdom would also be absorbed by them. When these powers truly had the confidence to destroy the Evergreen Kingdom, no one would doubt their ruthlessness and wouldn't hesitate to act. This was the cruelty of the immortal realms. This opportunity undoubtedly gave the various forces several opportunities to join forces and deal with the Evergreen Kingdom. How many people have come? There's no need to hide, just come out. The Chongqing the Great raised his head and stared at the boundless sky. As the sound of his voice faded, numerous supreme figures appeared. Each of them was releasing an extremely terrifying aura, tyrannical to the extreme. Supreme Sword Emperor. The Chongqing the Great looked at one of them. Beneath his feet were immortal swords. Wherever he was, that was the world of swords. Master of the Celestial Palace. The Chongqing the Great then looked at another person. This person was wearing a black robe and his entire body was pitch black. However, his face was extremely young and he looked to be in his 20s or 30s. He was extremely devilish. Immortal Emperor Tai Hua. He then glanced at another person. This person was clad in ancient emperor robes and exuded boundless might, unexcelled in the world, causing people in the world to not dare to look up to him. The appearance of these experts caused the Evergreen Kingdom Palace to feel suffocated. Although they had already greatly overestimated this matter, they didn't expect that Qing Er's wedding would cause such a violent storm. Brother Violet and Brother Dongxing are here as well? The Evergreen Kingdom stared at the other two figures. They were none other than Zidi and Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Wise Brother Evergreen, this time around, you didn't abide by the ruling of the immortal realms. You shouldn't have done so. If you are willing to hand the person over, everything will naturally calm down. Zidi spoke. Dongxing Heaven Emperor nodded his head lightly, but when he glanced at Qin Wenyan in the crowd, his eyes flickered with coldness. An immortal emperor would have such a deep obsession with immortal foundation characters. This could be considered a strange matter. He initially didn't wish to be embroiled in this storm. After all, his relationship with the Evergreen Kingdom wasn't bad on the surface. However, the immortal Qianbian Gate would also be embroiled in this. With the entire eastern regions in chaos, it would be extremely difficult for his Dongshengshan Gate to remain unscathed. Hence, he could only choose a side. Without a doubt, he chose the side of the Tenlan Heaven Kingdom. In the face of life and death, friendship wasn't even worth mentioning. What do the two of you mean? Chongqing the Great glanced in two other directions. Two more immortal emperors had arrived. One of them exuded a towering demonic qi, while the other exuded a supreme human emperor. Just here to watch the show. That supreme human emperor laughed. As for what he said, who would believe him? These two were none other than the powerful existences of the Nine Emperors' immortal state and the White Tiger people. Their participation was also the catalyst for today's events. A grudge between juniors in the Sacred Academy. Two immortal emperors actually want to settle it with juniors in the outside world? What a joke! Chongqing the Great stared at the two immortal emperors as he spoke. How could he not know where they came from? Evergreen, just hand the two of them over. Why must you gamble the entire Evergreen Kingdom on two juniors? The Violet Emperor seemed to be persuading them with kind words. The two people he was talking about, everyone naturally knew who they were. The daughter of Chongqing the Great, Qing, as well as Qin Wenyan of the immortal Qianbian Gate. The two of them were currently standing together, inclining their heads as they stared at the immortal emperors of the various powers. The reason you want me to hand over my daughter is because of the contract. In that case, what's the reason for you to hand over Qin Wenyan? Is it because many of your juniors were killed in the Sacred Academy? Chongqing the Great calmly spoke. Do you still not understand? Given the current situation, why is there a need for a reason? Zidi's voice rang out as a surge of coldness engulfed the entire space. That's right, given the current situation, why would there be a need for a reason? Strength was the reason. A powerful light radiated from the imperial palace of the Evergreen Kingdom. Terrifying spatial fluctuations shot up into the clouds. The gazes of everyone turned over only to see several powerful figures walking over. "We pay our respects to Master." GD's followers all bowed to a female. This female's robes weren't extravagant, yet she exuded a sense of nobility. Her robes seemed to be formed from spatial energy, and her entire body exuded a terrifying light. Her gaze was extremely imposing, and when her gaze swept past the experts in the air, it was like a sharp blade slicing through the void. "I truly want to see who wants to bring my disciple away today." This female was none other than GD. "Master!" Ching-Er's silhouette flashed as she appeared before GD and bowed. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. Her matter actually caused her master to personally come here. Even the beasts of the White Tiger people dare to come here? It serves you right that those beasts of the White Tiger people were roasted alive. I didn't settle the debt with you guys, but you actually dared to come here to seek revenge from a junior? GD turned her gaze to the White Tiger Immortal Emperor before turning to the Immortal Emperors of the Nine Emperors Immortal State. The Nine Emperors Immortal State is a peak power of the central regions and has existed for countless years. Isn't it shameful for you to come here to interrogate a junior? GD's words weren't polite at all. The moment she appeared, she directly questioned the two immortal emperors. The baleful aura from the White Tiger Immortal Emperor soared upwards, terrifying to the extreme. This woman actually dared to humiliate him, the White Tiger people. "Emperor Lord." Qin Wendian bowed to another group of experts. This person was none other than the Emperor Lord of Qianbian. Does GD and the Immortal Qianbian Gate want to be implicated as well? The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor questioned. "You aren't qualified to speak to me." GD glanced at the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor impolitely, her words causing the expression of the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor to change. In truth, he, the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor, could only be considered a junior in front of GD. Also, in terms of cultivation base, there was still a great disparity between him and GD. GD was the same as ZD, a peak stage Immortal Emperor. In addition, GD was even more ancient compared to ZD. She had nurtured countless powerful disciples, and there were even a few Immortal Emperor-ranked disciples among them. She was truly terrifying. Although she didn't have any thoughts of ruling the endless territories, there was no need to doubt GD's influence in the eastern regions. "GD, the outcome of the adjudication isn't something you can change with your strength alone." ZD stood there arrogantly, staring at GD as he spoke. "Don't forget that this place belongs to me, the Evergreen Kingdom Palace." The Chongqing the Great spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the entire royal palace flashed with an incomparably resplendent light. This terrifying light seemed as though it wanted to pierce through the sky. In the direction of the Emperor Palace, an ancient evergreen tree soared up into the sky, radiating green light in all directions as branches and leaves spread out unceasingly. Rustling sounds rang out unceasingly. In just a short instant, this terrifying ancient tree had already enveloped the entire royal palace and was even moving towards the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom. A distance of tens of millions of miles was instantly covered by the branches. The experts from the Evergreen Kingdom Palace trembled as they stared at this scene. It was too shocking. They saw the ancient tree towering up into the sky, shooting up into the clouds. Countless branches and leaves continued to extend into the distance, wanting to envelop the entire royal capital. A miraculous scene appeared in the Evergreen Kingdom Palace. The divine elephant that the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor was sitting on let out trumpeting sounds, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. Boundless energy cascaded downwards, akin to meteors falling from the sky, slamming into the light screen of the ancient tree. After that, the energy was directly absorbed and destroyed. Boundless starlight shone in the sky. At this moment, boundless starlight sprinkled down and intertwined with the ancient tree. The evergreen tree. The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor had a heavy expression on his face when he saw this. Why was the Evergreen Kingdom a peak power? They naturally had the foundations of a peak power. Indeed, fighting in the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom was extremely disadvantageous to them. Similarly, if the battlefield was in their Tenlon Heaven Kingdom, it would be the same as well. Qin Wenin inclined his head and stared at this shocking scene. It was unknown how much bigger a leaf was compared to him. This tree was like an ancient tree that reached the heavens, protecting the royal palace and the royal capital. The Namhuang clan has the phoenix ancestor in their ancestral land, and the royal palace of the Evergreen Kingdom has the evergreen tree. It seems like every ancient peak power has an unshakable foundation and capital. Qin Wendian silently mused. Chapter 12:24. The Changqing the Great stood beside the trunk of the ancient tree. The terrifying light shone on him, as though he would fuse with it at any moment. This eternal evergreen tree was a supreme treasure of the Evergreen Immortal Empire. Only the Evergreen Immortal Emperor would be able to control the eternal evergreen tree and even fuse with it, unleashing terrifying power. Although the Changqing the Great was still a step away from the peak stage of the Immortal Emperor realm, if he fused with the evergreen tree, the combat prowess he could unleash might even be more terrifying compared to ordinary peak stage immortal emperors. He was a spiritual body, and also an emperor-ranked weapon. The guardian tree of the Evergreen Kingdom, evergreen, never withering. Why did the civil war break out back then? Why did the position of the Changqing the Great cause brothers to fight against each other? Whoever ascended to this position would be able to control the evergreen tree and become the strongest expert in the Evergreen Kingdom, or even one of the strongest existences in the eastern regions. Who wouldn't covet such a position? Who wants to fight? The Changqing the Great spoke. In the royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom, he was the master. Evergreen, stop being so stubborn. I want you to abide by the contract and actually unleash the power of the evergreen tree for battle. Do you think we didn't come here prepared? The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor continued. Although the eternal evergreen tree gave him a fearsome pressure, how could they not have made sufficient preparations before coming here as a group? This was a wasted trip. Paragon Sword Emperor, your sword is said to be invincible. Why don't you test out the defense of the eternal evergreen tree and see if it's really as the legends say, evergreen and undying? The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor stared at the Paragon Sword Emperor as he spoke. The Paragon Sword Emperor nodded lightly. His eyes were like swords, and with a single glance, boundless sword intent descended from the heavens. He stepped out and waved his hand. In an instant, a Paragon sword that absorbed the essence of the sun, moon, and stars appeared. As the sword appeared, its light seemed to transcend the past and present. All the experts in the boundless region below instantly closed their eyes. This sword was named Paragon Sword. Paragon Sword, ordinary people could only look up to it. This was the sword of a king. Boundless astral light cascaded down from the sky, landing on the Paragon Sword Emperor and the Paragon Sword. The Paragon Sword Emperor and the Paragon Sword shone together, borrowing the power of the heavens to shine with the astral light. The eternal evergreen tree continued to expand, enveloping the entire imperial palace beneath it. In a battle between emperors, if both sides didn't control their attacks, they might be able to destroy the heavens and earth. A single battle could raise an entire city to flat ground. This place was the royal capital of the Evergreen Immortal Empire. As the ruler of the empire, the Evergreen Immortal Emperor naturally had to protect the people here. Qin Wenin, Qinger and the others in the royal palace were like the countless experts in the royal capital. All of them were protected under the radiance of the eternal evergreen tree. For those who stood above the tree, only immortal emperors had the qualifications to participate in this battle. Cultivating, the higher one's cultivation base is, the more they would be able to borrow boundless might to unleash destructive might. Qin Wendian stared at the sky. On his journey here, there was no doubt that this point was proven. At the start, when one's cultivation base increased, the change in destructive might wouldn't be too great. But when one became a peak-level expert, the increase in their cultivation base would be extremely terrifying. Back then, the Changqing the Great once reminded himself that the reason why he was still alive was because Zidi and Dongsheng Heaven Emperor couldn't let go of their pride. If not, he would already be dead. With regards to this point, Qin Wendian didn't doubt it at all. It was too easy for an immortal emperor to kill an immortal foundation expert. Naturally, if Eastern Sage wanted him dead, Emperor Qinbian could also cause the Dongshengshan Gate to suffer a calamity. This was the true reason why both sides were restricted. As for Zidi, Zi Daoyang was killed by Mo Xie while Zi Yunwu was killed by Di Tian. Nobody knew that it was him. Hence, the killing intent towards him wasn't strong enough. One day, if Eastern Sage and Zidi discovered the threat he posed, they would definitely kill him without hesitation. Upon thinking of this, Qin Wentian's thirst for power grew even more intense. Up in the air, the Paragon Sword Emperor formed hand seals as boundless starlight cascaded down on his body. Numerous sharp swords that resembled stars descended from the heavens. Each and every one of these sharp swords shone with a starlight that could pierce through the heavens. With a single glance, one could feel how terrifying these swords were. And at this instant, the entire sky was filled with these swords. They were like constellations as they slowly descended from the heavens. Kill! The Paragon Sword Emperor waved his hand. The Paragon Sword was like the lord of all swords. The countless swords that could kill everything in the world suddenly sped up and descended from the sky like a meteor. In an instant, they smashed down. This scene was like a scene of destruction. The immortal emperors all had halos revolving around them. However, they didn't have any intense reactions. After all, the target of the Paragon Sword Emperor wasn't them. It was the eternal evergreen tree. Swish, the ancient tree moved, growing even faster than the swords. Countless branches extended outwards, instantly enveloping the Paragon Sword Emperor within. Incomparably complicated runes of light erupted forth from the countless branches. These countless branches actually radiated the power of innate techniques, akin to the law energy of the great Tao of heaven and earth. A scene of boundless destruction appeared in the air. The branches and the swords clashed against each other. Under the might of the Paragon Sword Emperor, even the heavens and earth seemed to be on the verge of shattering. The branches sliced through the air, exuding a destructive light that caused the entire space to shatter. Go! The Paragon Sword Emperor's expression didn't change. With a wave of his hand, the Paragon Sword appeared in the air, causing the heavens and earth to tremble unceasingly. In the starry sky, boundless light cascaded downwards. In an instant, a rain of swords appeared, even more rapid and sharper than a meteor shower. Under such a rain of swords, an entire city was instantly razed to the ground. Bzz, bzz, bzz. The sky seemed to be filled with a raging tempest. The speed of the swords was simply too fast, so fast that only after the swords sliced through the air did the sounds of swords echo out. The eternal evergreen tree shone with the resplendent light. Countless branches and leaves covered the sky as a river of stars manifested in the air. The boundless sword might rain down, all of them were absorbed into the river of stars. After that, the entire area started to be destroyed. Occasionally, there would be sharp swords that pierced through the river of swords, continuing their way towards the ancient tree. However, they were all destroyed by the branches. Stepping out, the Paragon Sword Emperor's silhouette appeared in the air above the river of stars. Countless ancient sword characters floated around him, imprinting themselves onto the Paragon Sword. The sword whistled, causing the heavens and earth to shatter. The Paragon Sword Emperor slashed down, aiming for the river of stars. A thunderous sound rang out. It was as though the sky had crumbled apart. The Paragon Sword Emperor continued to slash down, wanting to destroy the eternal evergreen tree. The body of the Chongqing the Great seemed to have fused into the ancient tree. His body erupted with an incomparably resplendent light as the gigantic eternal evergreen tree radiated a refreshing green color. For a time, the entire sky and earth transformed into the color of life. This kind of green color covered the entire sky. Boom! The Paragon Sword pierced into the main trunk of the eternal evergreen tree, slicing through everything, wanting to shatter it. Millions upon millions of swords rained down, destroying everything under the might of this sword. The green light illuminated the entire city as the land of destruction instantly regenerated. A terrifying destructive force obstructed the advance of the Paragon Sword Emperor. The entire tree was filled with the light of destruction and rebirth. The gazes of the crowd stared at the center of the tree. The Paragon Sword Emperor had his eyes closed as a supreme sword might gushed forth from him. However, that tree was simply too powerful. It was basically an undying trunk that could be reborn from destruction. Boundless energy gushed forth, wanting to trap the Paragon Sword Emperor within. Eternal evergreen, never to wither. When everyone thought of this sentence, their hearts trembled. If they couldn't find the weakness of the eternal evergreen tree, even a supreme weapon like the Paragon Sword Emperor wouldn't be able to destroy it. This was an undying ancient tree, an evergreen tree. Countless vines grew and multiplied endlessly, locking the Paragon Sword Emperor within. Sword intent that could pierce through the heavens erupted forth, yet it was unable to destroy the eternal evergreen tree. The Paragon Sword Emperor furrowed his brows. After that, he pointed his finger forward as the Paragon sword instantly returned to its original position. Swish! As soon as the Paragon sword returned, numerous vines manifested. Boundless green light radiated forth, transforming into a heaven-piercing green branch that slashed through the air. At this instant, the countenance of the Paragon Sword Emperor drastically changed. A dazzling sword light radiated forth as the Paragon Sword Emperor directly vanished from his original location. However, when the jade green light slashed down, a supreme destructive might manifested. The entire sky seemed to be torn apart as a terrifying black fissure appeared. Bang! From afar, the sword light of the Paragon Sword Emperor clashed against the black fissure and was forced back by the impact. But very swiftly after, he stepped out and stood in the air, coldly staring down at the eternal evergreen tree. Evidently, he was the weaker party in this confrontation. He basically had no way to shake the eternal evergreen tree. A towering might suddenly gushed forth from the sky-mist immortal emperor. The divine elephant he was sitting on turned golden as numerous constellations in the sky seemed to be summoned. From the body of the divine elephant, a terrifying aura gushed forth. Beneath the feet of the Taihua immortal emperor, an emperor painting appeared behind him. This painting was also a supremely terrifying emperor-ranked weapon. Within this painting, there were countless war chariots as well as thousands of soldiers and horses, exuding a terrifying aura that could destroy everything. From the emperor-ranked weapon, the sound of tsunamis could be heard. These war chariots and soldiers seemed to be alive. An emperor-ranked battle? Qin Wentian stared at the immortal emperors in the air. Such a situation was also something he didn't expect. In the royal palace of the Evergreen Kingdom, another bright light flashed. Nanfeng Guhong and the other experts from the Namhuang clan arrived. 3 immortal emperors directly passed through the light screen of the eternal evergreen tree. The Chongqing the Great naturally wouldn't allow the light screen to obstruct them. The Namhuang clan also wants to participate in the adjudication battle? The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor furrowed his brows. In the Sacred Academy, Qin Wenyan, the Namhuang clan and the daughter of the Chongqing the Great are allies. If the White Tiger people and the 9 Emperors Immortal State want to settle the grudges in the Sacred Academy, please leave now. Nanfeng Guhong spoke with cold arrogance. What arrogant words! The baleful aura of the White Tiger Demon Emperor was terrifying. My Namhuang clan has already opened a spatial passageway to the royal palace. Even if we want to keep you here, it shouldn't be too difficult. Do you want to try? Nanfeng Guhong turned her gaze over, staring at the White Tiger Demon Emperor. Chapter 12:25. Nanfeng Guhong's words caused the expressions of the experts in the air to change. The Namhuang clan was one of the 3 ancient clans of the southern regions. They had existed for countless years and had extremely deep foundations. If the Namhuang clan fully supported the Evergreen Kingdom and opened up a spatial tunnel, there was no doubt that this battle would be extremely disadvantageous to them. In fact, just like what Nanfeng Guhong said, it wasn't impossible to make the White Tiger Demon Emperor stay here. I truly want to see how you guys can make me stay here. The White Tiger Demon Emperor let out a low roar as he transformed into an incomparably gigantic white tiger. At this instant, The entire space was filled with towering, baleful might. Seems like there's no way to settle things peacefully today. The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor coldly spoke. In truth, the current situation was something the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor didn't expect. The White Tiger people and the 9 Emperors' immortal state didn't seek revenge because of the strength of the Namhuang clan. Instead, they came to the Evergreen Kingdom and formed an alliance with them, preparing to conquer the Evergreen Kingdom in one fell swoop. That's right, conquer. Before this, they didn't have such a crazy idea. This was also a coincidence. They saw their alliance growing stronger and stronger, hence, they had this idea. In their estimation, Eastern Sage could deal with the Emperor Qianbian, Zidi could deal with GD, the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor and the Paragon Sword Emperor could join forces to restrict the Chongqing the Great who was borrowing the power of the Evergreen Tree. If they couldn't, they could add in the Taihua Immortal Emperor. Other than this, they still had the Celestial Palace Lord, the White Tiger Demon Emperor, and the Immortal Emperors of the 9 Emperors' immortal state. These people, in addition to the other immortal emperors, were more than enough to sweep through the Evergreen Kingdom. If they were willing to pay a price, they might even be able to kill the Chongqing the Great. Once they succeeded, the benefits would be immense. The Supreme Treasure, the Eternal Evergreen Tree, the other monarch weapons, the treasuries of the Evergreen Kingdom contained all the innate techniques and treasures of the Evergreen Kingdom, and the terrifying resources and treasures of the kingdom. They would be able to swallow up this boundlessly vast immortal kingdom. As for the Fuse, Qin Wenyan and Qin, they were actually secondary. It was just that they were the reason the Immortal Emperor Alliance was formed. When the real war broke out, they didn't seem that important. No matter who took them down, their fates were obvious. If not, with just 2 juniors at the Immortal Foundation realm, how could an Emperor-ranked battle of this level be triggered? On the other hand, it didn't matter even if they didn't take it down. The Evergreen Kingdom didn't have the capital to retaliate. At most, they would become enemies with each other. Unless the Chongqing the Great was strong enough to destroy them one day, they could only swallow their anger. Thus, this battle of emperors was triggered. Now that an emperor battle had erupted, how could they be made to retreat with just a few words? Make your move. The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor spoke. The astral light from the constellations cascaded down on him. He seemed to be sitting on a divine elephant as he blasted out a punch downwards. Countless motes of light shot towards the boundless earth, each of them transforming into a 10,000-meter-tall gigantic elephant that smashed towards the eternal evergreen tree. Swishing sounds rang out. The vines of the evergreen tree wriggled, blotting out the sky as they shot towards the divine elephants. The body of the Chongqing the Great has already fused with the evergreen tree. A pair of demonic eyes appeared on the trunk of the tree. The Paragon Sword Emperor descended once more. At this moment, the Paragon Sword floated behind him as boundless sword light radiated outwards. Boundless runes of light appeared, resembling the runes of the starry skies. Numerous Paragon Swords manifested from the runes, and as the Paragon Sword Emperor pointed his finger downwards, the evergreen tree below began to explode. The branches of the ancient tree were directly severed as thunderous booms shook the heavens and earth. Rumble! The gigantic body of the White Tiger Demon Emperor rushed towards Nanfeng Guhong. Nanfeng Guhong stretched out her slender hand as a phoenix spear with towering flames appeared in it. At this instant, an incomparably gigantic ancient phoenix appeared. Light cascaded down from the skies, intertwining with the spear as they transformed into a beam of fiery light that shot up into the sky. Nanfeng Guhong stepped out and pierced out with her spear, penetrating through the heavens. The White Tiger Demon Emperor let out a heaven-shaking roar of rage. An incomparably powerful Demon Emperor armor appeared on his body. At this moment, he transformed into a true Tiger King. GD's silhouette flashed as spatial light flashed. She directly appeared in the air. ZD also soared up into the air, following in the direction of GD. The 2 peak-stage immortal emperors also wanted to test each other's strength. Dongsheng Heaven Emperor flew towards Emperor Qianbian. The 2 of them had fought to a draw before. Now that they met again, they naturally had to fight again. Immortal Emperor Taihua glanced at the battlefield. From the emperor diagram behind him, an army of thousands and thousands of soldiers rushed out. The emperor war chariots directly smashed downwards, crushing all the vines that shot over. The army of thousands and thousands of soldiers rushed towards the evergreen tree, wanting to destroy it no matter what. Deal with the evergreen tree first. The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor transmitted his voice to everyone. The people from the Celestial Palace also moved, rushing towards the evergreen tree. The immortal emperors under GD, the Namhuang clan, as well as the other immortal emperors from the other major powers all rushed towards the evergreen tree. In an instant, the battlefield opened up in the air, radiating out to the entire royal capital of the Evergreen Kingdom. Under the protection of the evergreen tree, everyone inclined their heads and stared at the battle between immortal emperors as their hearts pounded madly. That immortal emperor from the 9 Emperors' immortal state still stood there. He stared at the battlefield as a cold smile appeared in his eyes. Chongqing the Great, who was borrowing the power of the evergreen tree, was currently being surrounded by 4 powerful experts using emperor-ranked weapons. He had no time to be distracted. He stepped out and moved towards the evergreen tree below. The tree branch shot over, slicing through the air as destructive light radiated forth. However, this immortal emperor was enveloped by the emperor's light. That destructive attack actually passed right through him. His body instantly reverted back to a corporeal state as he continued descending, directly landing on the light screen. Lowering his head, his gaze landed on Qin Wenyin, Qing, and the others within the Evergreen Kingdom Palace as a cold smile appeared in his eyes. Qin Wenyin inclined his head and could see the cold smile on the immortal emperor's face. His expression changed slightly. If the immortal emperor broke through their defenses and captured him and Qin, given the current situation, Qin Wenyin didn't doubt that the immortal emperor would directly bring them away. Stepping down, one of his feet passed through the light screen. At this moment, a beam of light appeared in the sky. This beam of light seemed to originate from the starry skies. The expression of that immortal emperor from the 9 Emperors' immortal state instantly changed. He was locked onto by that beam of light. Boom! He didn't continue descending. His body directly soared up into the air, instantly appearing in the sky. That beam of light was like the starlight in the sky, descending in an instant, directly traversing through the void, crossing the heavens and earth. Bzz. The immortal emperor from the 9 Emperors' immortal state once again emitted a light of nothingness. His body seemed to be in nothingness. That beam of light descended and pierced into his body of nothingness, directly exploding. The entire sky and earth seemed to have exploded. Only then did the people below see clearly. This beam of light was actually an arrow missing, a cosmic arrow missing. The immortal emperor of the Ashi Sengoku Kingdom? A thought appeared in the mind of the immortal emperor of the 9 Emperors' immortal state. The terrifying destructive power dissipated, only to see him groaning in pain as blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. A single arrow actually injured an immortal emperor. What a terrifying arrow. Who is it? The immortal emperor of the 9 Emperors' immortal state raised his head and looked at the sky. He could only sense a blurry figure standing in the starry sky, wrapped in endless starlight, holding a sun-shooting bow in his hand. If this arrow is used against the geniuses of your 9 Emperors' immortal state, a single arrow would be enough to kill one of them. The voice in the air rang out, echoing throughout the world. As an immortal emperor, I still have the pride of an immortal emperor. If anyone dares to act against the juniors again, I truly want to see how many of your descendants would be killed by my arrow. The expressions of the immortal emperors who were in combat all changed. The Chongqing the Great actually still had reinforcements in the dark? It seemed that the other immortal emperor of the Evergreen Kingdom, the White Emperor, had yet to appear. The White Emperor was rumored to be a powerful existence that assisted the Chongqing the Great in his ascension. Where was he right now? Where was the White Emperor? In the eastern prefecture of the 13 prefectures, at the Dongshangshan Gate. The immortal sect was extremely quiet, just like how it was in the past. However, many people were concerned about the upcoming battle against the Evergreen Kingdom. This time around, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor personally went to participate in the battle. No one knew what the ending would be. However, at this moment, outside the majestic Dongshengshan Gate, a figure clad in white leisurely walked over. He entered the Dongshengshan Gate with his hands behind his back, but his eyes were fixed on the boundless starry space. "Sir, please wait a moment." Numerous powerful auras gushed forth from the Dongshengshan Gate as experts soared up into the air. However, the white-robed figure directly transformed into a phantom, vanishing before their eyes as he continued on his way towards the inner regions of the Dongshengshan Gate. The tyrannical auras of the immortal kings gushed forth as a group of experts soared up into the air, surrounding the white-robed young man in the center as their auras gushed forth. "Senior, why did you come to our Dongshengshan Gate?" an expert asked. The white-robed figure turned his gaze onto everyone as he asked, "Where is the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor? His Majesty has some matters to attend to and is currently heading to the Evergreen Kingdom. If Senior wishes to meet with His Majesty, I'll have to trouble you to wait in the immortal sect." Everyone knew that the white-robed figure before them was unfathomable. They didn't dare to show any disrespect. "Eastern Sage, why did you head to the Evergreen Kingdom?" The voice of the white-robed figure was as calm as ever, with no fluctuations at all. The experts wanted to say something but hesitated. "Let me tell you guys. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor is heading to the Evergreen Kingdom with the intention of destroying the Evergreen Kingdom." The white-robed figure slowly spoke, his words causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. "This is the matter of His Majesty, we don't dare to question him. It's just that why did Senior come to our immortal sect to look for His Majesty?" An expert probed. "What's the matter?" The white-robed figure stared at the horizons as he mumbled, "The Eastern Sage alliance with the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom and the other major powers, wanting to divide the Evergreen Kingdom among themselves. Right now, he should be attacking the Evergreen Kingdom. Hence, I'm here at the Dongshengshan Gate." "Senior, who exactly are you?" Everyone already felt that something was wrong, and a sense of unease arose in their hearts. "The White Emperor." The white-robed figure retracted his gaze. At this instant, a terrifying light erupted forth from his eyes, causing the countenances of the people in the surroundings to turn ashen. Chapter 12:26. White Emperor. As the sound of the white-robed figure faded, the Dongshengshan Gate fell into silence. The atmosphere was extremely stifling. The White Emperor, one of the two emperors of the Evergreen Kingdom, had arrived at their Dongshengshan Gate. The Dongsheng Heaven Emperor headed to the Evergreen Kingdom Palace to participate in the encirclement. The Evergreen Kingdom was in a precarious situation, yet the White Emperor actually chose to abandon the Evergreen Kingdom and came to their Dongshengshan Gate. Although their Dongshengshan Gate still had immortal emperors guarding it, this was none other than the White Emperor. As for the mysterious and unfathomable White Emperor, nobody knew what level of cultivation base he had reached. Nobody knew how strong he was, but since he was able to assist the Evergreen Immortal Emperor in ascending to the throne, his strength clearly wasn't something ordinary immortal emperors could compare to. "Senior White Emperor, I wonder why you came to our Dongshengshan Gate?" Although his heart was trembling, an immortal king still suppressed the fear in his heart as he bowed. The white robes of the White Emperor fluttered in the wind as he stepped out. He didn't say anything more. Before this, he had already said that the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor was currently in the Evergreen Kingdom and wanted to aid the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor in destroying the Evergreen Kingdom. Hence, he came to the Dongshengshan Gate. In that case, no matter what he came here for, it was only natural. This step of his soared through the air. The immortal kings stared at him, not daring to obstruct him. Who could obstruct the White Emperor? Up ahead, a few towering auras erupted forth as two experts appeared. One of them even unleashed a monarch's might. The four paragons under the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor had once followed the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor to conquer the Eastern Sage 13 prefectures. They were mysterious and unfathomable. It was rare to see one of them. But right now, two paragons actually appeared in the Immortal Gate. The White Emperor acted as though he didn't see them at all. He soared through the air, and in the starry sky, Beams of light cascaded downwards as a destructive tempest manifested. The entire Eastern Sage Immortal sect started to be torn apart. Numerous palaces were swept into the tempest and shattered into pieces. A storm swept up the entire palace. Emperor Bai extended his hand, and the entire palace was sucked into his sleeve by a terrifying suction force. Senior White Emperor, what are you doing? That immortal emperor was like an ancient god, radiating a terrifying destructive might. Move the celestial gate, Emperor Bai said softly. He was calm as if he was talking about something normal. As he moved forward, the storm below became more and more terrifying. As he moved forward, the main palaces were uprooted one after another. The powerful matrices were directly destroyed. Then the entire celestial palace was sucked into his sleeve. He was actually going to move the celestial gate away. Sadly, the Emperor Palace of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor isn't located here. The White Emperor spoke in a light voice. Usually, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor wouldn't be in the Dongshangshan Gate. He was a transcendent existence, allowing the Dongshangshan Gate to govern the 13 prefectures for him. But even so, within the Dongshangshan Gate that governed the 13 prefectures, it was unknown how many cultivation resources the Dongxing Heaven Emperor had. In addition, this was the place where the Celestial Palace governed the 7 prefectures. Yet, this place was being destroyed wantonly. The White Emperor even walked to the center of the 2 paragons, completely ignoring them. He continued to sweep up palace after palace, wanting to move the entire Celestial Gate away. Senior, you are going too far. That immortal king had an extremely ugly expression on his face. His silhouette flashed as he moved towards the White Emperor. The white robes of the White Emperor fluttered in the wind. With a wave of his left sleeve, that immortal king froze in his original location. His entire body was enveloped by a terrifying light as his body trembled violently, as though he had just experienced the most terrifying thing in the world. No! A loud roar rang out. His body actually disintegrated bit by bit along with the light screen, and then disappeared without a trace. A supreme being, an extremely powerful immortal king existence, was turned into dust just like that with a wave of his hand. The immortal emperor at the side turned pale. He stared at the vanishing figure as a look of sorrow and anger appeared on his face. His blood-red eyes of destruction stared at the White Emperor, wanting nothing more than to kill the White Emperor on the spot. However, he also understood that with the power of Emperor Bai's wave, he was not Emperor Bai's opponent at all. The difference in power between the two was huge. But Emperor Bai did not seem to see him at all. He walked past him and continued walking. The storm continued. In the land of the Eastern State, countless figures looked in the direction of the Dongshangshan Gate. Looking at the storm, their hearts were in turmoil. This storm descended from the starry space, sweeping forward until the entire Dongshangshan Gate was engulfed within it. This scene could be said to be the scene of doomsday. The Dongshangshan Gate was raised to flat ground. Immediately inform Eastern Sage, tell him to retreat from the battlefield immediately. The White Emperor spoke in a light voice. His tone was devoid of emotions, no one knew if he was happy or angry. That immortal emperor didn't dare to defy these calm words. Nobody knew what terrifying consequences there would be if they ignored this calm voice. Although the White Emperor had arrived, other than that immortal king earlier, he didn't kill anyone else. Clearly, he didn't come here to kill anyone. He also disdained to kill the people of the Dongshangshan Gate. He was the White Emperor and naturally had his own pride. He came here for 2 reasons. Firstly, to tell the Dongshangshan Gate that before they act, they should at least consider all the possible consequences. Secondly, it was to warn the major powers of the eastern regions. On the battlefield of the Evergreen Kingdom, the expression of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor suddenly changed, becoming extremely unsightly to behold. Brother Evergreen, what do you mean by this? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor stared at the trunk of the evergreen tree below. I'm not worthy. A cold voice replied. The White Emperor came to my Dongshangshan Gate. Isn't this a little despicable? The Dongxing Heaven Emperor coldly spoke, his words causing a strange expression to appear on the faces of everyone. No wonder the White Emperor didn't appear, he actually went to the Dongshangshan Gate. You don't feel that you are despicable, but you actually think that the White Emperor is despicable? Eastern Sage, today, you have truly made me look at you in a new light. The Chongqing the Great spoke. Scram, you are still not qualified to participate in this battle. The expression of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor turned ashen. The Chongqing the Great wanted him to scram from this battlefield, saying that he wasn't qualified to participate in this battle. During these years, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor was extremely unhappy. The immortal Qianbian Gate occupied 6 of his prefectures, causing him to lose all face. This time around, the White Emperor directly slaughtered his way into the Dongshangshan Gate, causing him to be humiliated once again. The arrow in the starry space as well as the words of the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor caused the battlefield to temporarily calm down. Sir, as an Immortal Emperor, why must you hide your head but show your tail, using sneak attacks? The Immortal Emperor of the 9 Emperors' immortal state inclined his head and stared at the sky. He was actually injured by a single arrow. From what he knew, only immortal emperors from the Ashi Sengoku Kingdom would be able to do such a thing. In the air, a figure radiating a resplendent light descended, shining as brightly as the constellations. At the instant they saw this figure, the expressions of Zidi and the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor froze. They had met this person before. Not only for them, Nanfeng Guhong and even Qin Wendian had met this person before. God Hand Mountain Manor, Emperor Yu. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a smile. He didn't expect that Emperor Yu would actually be paying attention to his movements. Clearly, it wasn't a coincidence that Emperor Yu appeared here today. Emperor Yu must have been paying attention to him. What are you doing here instead of staying at the God Hand Mountain Manor? Zidi stared coldly at Emperor Yu. The God Hand Mountain Manor has already disbanded. Today, I naturally came here to see if the successor of ancient Emperor Yi is doing well. Who would have thought that I would actually see an immortal emperor acting against an immortal Foundation character? Emperor Yu calmly spoke. The immortal emperor of the 9 emperors' immortal state stared at Emperor Yu. This immortal emperor who didn't seem to be famous in the immortal realms was actually so powerful. At the very least, the power contained within that arrow caused him to feel an intense threat. Ancient Emperor Yi, Ancient Emperor Yi. Who are you to Ancient Emperor? A follower of Ancient Emperor Yi. Emperor Yu laughed, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. A follower of an ancient emperor? He came here because of Qin Wendian. Zidi, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor, Nanfeng Guhong and the others who had experienced the incident at the God Hand Mountain Manor back then were naturally clearer about this matter. What do you intend to do? The immortal emperor of the 9 emperors' immortal state asked. Naturally, I'm inviting everyone to leave. Emperor Yu replied. The expressions of the immortal emperors were unkind. At the very beginning, they had an absolute advantage. But now, the situation was reversed bit by bit. Right now, the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor was forced to retreat from the battlefield and Emperor Yu actually came here to participate. In addition, the immortal Qianbian Gate, the Namhuang clan and Emperor Yu might have appeared because of Qin Wendian. They seem to have greatly underestimated the strength of this immortal Foundation Junior. If the armies of my 9 emperors' immortal state arrive, the Evergreen Kingdom would surely be destroyed. The immortal emperor of the 9 emperors' immortal state spoke with arrogance, filled with confidence. As a peak power in the central regions, the strength of the 9 emperors' immortal state was much stronger compared to the major powers in the eastern regions. Because of the grudge between a junior from the Sacred Academy, the entire 9 emperors' immortal state would be dragged into this? If that's the case, it would truly be a great joke. Emperor Yu calmly spoke. Although I'm not as powerful as ancient Emperor Yi in the past, it's still very easy for me to kill these juniors. I believe the Chongqing the Great and the others would be the same as well. In that case, I would like to ask for guidance. How should we resolve this? The immortal emperor of the 9 emperors' immortal state felt some reluctance in his heart. The major powers of the eastern regions came together to initiate an emperor-ranked battle. If they were defeated, it would simply be a humiliation. I'm a follower of ancient Emperor Yi, and your eastern regions used the rules of the ancient Emperor era to initiate the adjudication battle. In addition, a battle between juniors would ultimately have to be resolved by the juniors. Chongqing the Great, I suggest to initiate an adjudication battle with Immortal Foundation characters participating, deciding life and death. Emperor Yu solemnly spoke. Adjudication battle, deciding life and death, huh? The Chongqing the Great walked out from the eternal evergreen tree, staring at the immortal emperors in the air. Right now, the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor and the others all had expressions of reluctance on their faces. They understood that the purpose of the Emperor-ranked battle today was all for naught. They wouldn't be able to take down the Evergreen Kingdom. From a certain perspective, not being able to take down the Evergreen Kingdom was already considered a defeat for them. Even if they won the adjudication battle, they would only be able to win the two princesses. This wasn't their true purpose. If the Evergreen Kingdom is defeated and the Chongqing the Great still refuses to comply with the adjudication rules, what should we do then? The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor asked. Emperor Yu turned his gaze to the Chongqing the Great. This matter was truly difficult to resolve. If he initiated the adjudication battle, it meant that he would have to comply with the adjudication rules. If he lost, he would have to hand over the two princesses. Chapter 12:27. The Chongqing the Great had a heavy expression on his face. By initiating the adjudication battle, it meant that he acknowledged the adjudication of the immortal realms. He was naturally unwilling to do so. However, the battles in the immortal realms were extremely cruel. The Tenlon Heaven Kingdom had a contract with the Evergreen Kingdom, and there was also the descendant of the traitor who married into the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom back then, causing the major powers of the eastern regions to form an alliance to deal with the Evergreen Kingdom. They wanted to take advantage of their internal strife to cause the Evergreen Kingdom to collapse. The Evergreen Kingdom had experienced chaos for less than 100 years, but the revival of a major power required tens of thousands of years. The major powers of the eastern regions didn't want to miss out on this opportunity. As for those who stood on the side of the Evergreen Kingdom, other than GD who came because of Qingge, the Emperor Qianbian, the Namhuang clan and Emperor Yu might have a closer relationship with Qin Wenyan. If an emperor-ranked battle erupted, he didn't know how much strength the Namhuang clan would give. He, the Chongqing the Great, didn't have the qualifications to ask others to fight for him. All of this, the Chongqing the Great could naturally see it clearly. Since Emperor Yu is a follower of an ancient emperor, I want to ask if I agree to participate in the adjudication battle. What are the rules? The Chongqing the Great asked. Since this is an adjudication battle, let's choose the location. The Myriad Devil Islands shall be the location of the adjudication. Both sides will send 100 experts into the Myriad Devil Islands. They can use any methods they want and the time limit is 10 years. The side with the most survivors shall be the victor. How about it? Emperor Yu spoke, his words causing the expressions of everyone to change. He actually chose the Myriad Devil Islands as the location? This was simply too ruthless. Naturally, only a place like the Myriad Devil Islands would be fair. Because no matter which location was chosen, these terrifying existences would be able to extend their hands into it. The only exception was the Myriad Devil Islands. That was a place where emperors of the immortal realms were forbidden from entering. Otherwise, it would be seen as an invasion. But for Immortal Foundation experts, things were different. In the immortal realms, there were some who would really head to the Myriad Devil Islands to temper themselves. The Myriad Devil Islands didn't reject ordinary Immortal Foundation experts, and in fact, there were many who turned into devils after entering, being recruited by the major powers of the Myriad Devil Islands, becoming disciples of the devil sects and cultivating devil arts. This was very normal. However, if they wanted to use the Myriad Devil Islands as the venue for the adjudication battle, it would undoubtedly be extremely risky. They had to be extremely careful when sending their subordinates in. Who would dare to send all their peak-level geniuses in? It was possible that once they entered, they would never be able to return. Their hands couldn't reach in, which meant that no matter which faction they came from, the demonic cultivators inside wouldn't care. Even if these disciples died inside, there was nothing they could do. Emperor Feather's suggestion was indeed ruthless. In addition, there was another layer of meaning in Emperor Feather's words. This was a competition between the peak powers. If they sent their descendants in, they might bring along terrifying divine weapons. But in a place like the Myriad Devil Islands, if you used divine weapons of that level, you would most probably die very quickly. Naturally, even if the Myriad Devil Islands were the venue for the adjudication battle, it wouldn't be absolutely fair. Both sides might even send immortal kings to aid them. Hence, this battle wasn't merely a competition between the 100 chosen. In truth, it was also a competition between both sides, to see who was more ruthless and whose methods were more powerful. Myriad Devil Islands. Chongqing the Great mumbled. At this moment, a voice drifted over, "Just accept it." The eyes of Chongqing the Great flashed. He stared below the eternal evergreen tree only to see Qing's beautiful eyes staring at him. That cold gaze of hers was filled with determination. Evidently, Qing also knew how serious the emperor-ranked battle was. In truth, before they had the confidence to kill the other party, both sides would still hold back. For example, Evergreen's side might be able to kill an ordinary immortal emperor with a lower cultivation base. But once they did, they wouldn't be able to hold back anymore. Another example was the White Emperor. He killed his way into the Dongshangshan Gate, but he didn't kill indiscriminately. It was only because there was an immortal king blocking his way that he killed one. If he killed indiscriminately and failed to destroy Eastern Sage, in the future, Eastern Sage's revenge would similarly cause the younger generations of the Evergreen Kingdom to suffer greatly. Chongqing the Great wasn't afraid. But what about Qing? Right now, the alliance of the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom had no way to destroy the Evergreen Kingdom. In that case, they had to suppress themselves and not make any reckless moves. Hence, both sides were considering Emperor Feather's suggestion. If the situation was one-sided, there was no need for them to consider the adjudication battle. At this moment, Emperor Feather transmitted his voice to Chongqing the Great. Chongqing the Great's eyes flashed before he understood. He inclined his head and stared at the air as he spoke, "I accept. If we lose this adjudication battle, I'm willing to accept the result." The expression of the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor froze. Chongqing the Great actually agreed to the adjudication battle. To them, this was also a difficult problem. If they accepted the adjudication battle, who should they send to the Myriad Devil Islands to participate? What about the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom? Emperor Feather turned his gaze over, staring at the Sky Mist Immortal Emperor as he asked. If the Tenlon Heaven Kingdom doesn't agree to the adjudication battle would be meaningless. The Evergreen Kingdom can naturally choose not to comply. If that's the case, we can just continue to fight. Emperor Feather coldly spoke. A strong power would gain respect. If it wasn't for Emperor Feather injuring an immortal emperor with a single arrow, how would the other immortal emperors listen to him quietly? He most probably wouldn't even have the qualifications to express his opinion. Just like back then at the God Hand Mountain Manor, if Emperor Feather didn't display his strength, Zedi and Eastern Sage wouldn't care about his attitude. The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor nodded, finally coming to a compromise. Their so-called alliance wasn't as stable as they imagined. The various major powers were all here for the sake of benefits. If an all-out war broke out, who knew which power would back out first? This time, their plan to plot against the Evergreen Kingdom failed. In that case, they could only wait for another opportunity and fight for victory in the adjudication battle. In that case, 3 months later, both sides shall bring 100 Immortal Foundation descendants to the entrance of the Myriad Devil Islands. Everyone, please return. Emperor Feather's voice was calm. All the immortal emperors glanced at him. From today onwards, most probably no one would dare to underestimate this immortal emperor from the God Hand Mountain Manor. His cultivation base might very well be very high. For people like Emperor Feather, there was no lack of them in the vast immortal realms. After all, in the endless river of time, who knew how many immortal emperors were still alive in a certain corner of the immortal realms? Maybe, a woodcutter you saw might be a character whose name shook the world countless years ago. Let's go. It was meaningless to continue staying here. The Sky Mist Immortal Emperor waved his hand as a divine elephant trumpeted and soared into the air. The Paragon Sword Emperor and the others were filled with reluctance. By initiating an Emperor-ranked battle, they had completely offended the Evergreen Kingdom, yet they failed to destroy it in a single move. The interference of Emperor Feather and the Namhuang clan had completely messed up their plans. The Myriad Devil Islands? The White Tiger Demon Emperor glanced downwards as he departed as well. Very swiftly, the immortal emperors all vanished from the airspace of the Evergreen Kingdom. The vines and leaves of the evergreen tree that covered the entire region retracted with lightning speed. Not long after, when the people in the royal capital inclined their heads and stared at the sky, everything returned to normal. The immortal emperors had all vanished. The emperor-ranked battle had ended. The evergreen tree once again buried itself into the ground of the Evergreen Kingdom, taking root there. The evergreen immortal emperor walked through the air, clasping his hands to Matriarch Ji, Emperor Yu, Nanfeng Guhong, the Thousand Transformations Emperor Lord and the other experts. Evergreen thanks everyone for coming here to aid us. Evergreen, the adjudication battle will be extremely dangerous. Leaving aside your opponents, even entering the Myriad Devil Islands is an unknown matter. What do you plan to do? GD stared at Chongqing the Great as she asked. Chongqing the Great sighed. That internal war caused too great of a toll on my empire. Not only did many experts die in battle, there were even some juniors who died. Right now, in this generation of the Evergreen Kingdom, there aren't many outstanding geniuses. Qin Wenin, since you like Qing'er and this battle concerns her future, you wouldn't wish for her to marry into the Sky Mist Empire, right? Qin Wenin inclined his head and stared at Chongqing the Great who was in the air. He was holding on to Qing'er's hand and under the gazes of so many experts, he still did so, displaying his determination. I will head to the Myriad Devil Islands and fight for the sake of protecting Qing'er. Qin Wenin solemnly spoke. Fine, the time limit for this adjudication battle is 10 years. If you come out alive and obtain victory, I will betroth my beloved daughter Qing'er to you. Chongqing announced in front of everyone, his words causing Qin Wenin to stiffen. Qing'er, who was beside him, also froze as a strange light flashed in her eyes. After that, their hands clenched even tighter, feeling the warmth of each other's palms. I will send several disciples to participate in the battle. GD spoke. Qing'er inclined her head and stared at GD. Qing'er, there's no need for you to feel guilty about what happened in the Sacred Academy. This time around, it isn't purely for you. Heading to the Myriad Devil Islands is a form of tempering for your senior apprentice sister. If one wants to become a supreme expert, how can it be possible without experiencing the tempering of life and death? Just treat it as a tempering experience. GD calmly spoke. My Namhuang clan will choose some people to participate in the battle. Nanfeng Guhong spoke. Many thanks, senior. Qin Wenin bowed. I will also choose some people to follow Qin Wenin to participate in the battle. Emperor Qinbian spoke. All the immortal emperors expressed their stances. Since this is the case, everyone can go back and make your preparations. 3 months later, we will arrive at the entrance of the Myriad Devil Islands. Emperor Yu spoke. He glanced at Qin Wenin. Little fellow, don't let down your identity as ancient Emperor Yi's successor. Yes, senior. Qin Wenin nodded. He understood that there was another layer of meaning behind Emperor Yu's words. In the ancient mountain, not only did he obtain ancient Emperor Yi's inheritance, he also obtained the identity of the Saint Lord of the Battle Saint tribe. As for Emperor Yu, he was also a member of the Battle Saint tribe. Let's go. Emperor Yu turned and soared into the air, vanishing from this area in the blink of an eye. Nanfeng Guhong cast a deep glance at Qin Wenin. Nobody knew what happened in the ancient mountain back then. Emperor Yu was the servant of ancient Emperor Yi, while Qin Wenin was ancient Emperor Yi's successor. However, was there really only this relationship between them? Those experts who followed Qin Wenin were all from the same ancient clan. However, there was no such clan in the immortal realms. In that case, where did they come from? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.